Never question if true love can last. The heart can change in the blink of an eye, like tears on a withered flower. Back then, his love for her was sincere and passionate. He came from a broken home and was bullied, but she was the only one who ever stood up for him. When she said she didn't have a phone, he worked hard to save money and buy her one just to stay in touch. At home, her parents fought endlessly, but his messages got her through those agonizing nights. Because he protected her, he was beaten by school thugs and covered in bruises. Yet he would still smile and say it didn't hurt. At that moment, the love in her heart could no longer be contained. Under the sunset, their youthful blushes were worth more than any fake confession. From dating to marriage, they stayed by each other's side for 13 years. But those old vows eventually began to rust. Arguments, cold shoulders, gaslighting, and even cheating. She was heartlessly betrayed. He even used her identity to rack up massive high-interest debt. To pay it off, she works 12 hours a day, stops buying makeup, and never throws away torn clothes. In return, he only mocks her, calling her a boring, haggard woman. The light that once illuminated her youth has now become a cage. But even a withered flower can bloom again one day. No Haesoo met his own Rose, who taught him how to love himself. The story begins with two people meeting in a flower shop. To pay off the debt, Haesoo works multiple jobs simultaneously. Looking at his schedule, he works at the flower shop in the morning, at a barbecue restaurant in the afternoon, and at a motel front desk on weekends. His colleague, Wajin, was shocked. To her, this wasn't a workload a human could handle. But little did she know, Haesoo had lived this way for 13 years. When they were young and had no help from parents, he married Kong Mincheol. Later, to start a business, Mincheol took out high-interest loans in Haesoo's name. Faced with the man's desperate begging, Haesoo chose to forgive him. Initially, he didn't feel too miserable. Instead, he was full of hope, thinking that if they worked hard together, they would eventually clear the debt. Only occasionally would emotions well up, making him want to burst into tears, because Mincheol's love for him was disappearing faster than they could pay off the debt. Just then, the shop welcomed its first customer. Wajin told Haesoo that this was the handsome guy who comes every day to buy roses, since they didn't know his name. The part-timers called him Rose. After saying that, she enthusiastically approached him. "Hello, are you here for flowers?" Wajin asked with a bright smile. Rose pulled down his collar, but he didn't speak. He just gave her an expressionless look. Then, he turned his gaze to Haesoo, who was trimming flower ribbons nearby. His long, slender fingers tapped on the counter. Haesoo looked up, confused, as the man's deep voice reached his ears. "I want to place an order. You do it for me." Although he didn't know why the man insisted on this, as a clerk, Haesoo had no reason to refuse. To him, this wasn't some daily handsome customer, but rather a strange man. Haesoo asked if he wanted to buy roses. Hearing this, the corners of Rose's mouth curled into a slight smile. "I'm glad. I didn't expect you to remember me." Haesoo didn't know how to respond, so he just silently turned back to trim the branches. From the first moment he saw the man, Haesoo felt like he was the lead in a movie, standing at the center of the crowd, living his own unique life. In contrast, Haesoo's situation was like a lonely extra that no one cares about. Perhaps it was this huge contrast that made Haesoo, who usually cared for nothing but work and his husband, have a deep impression of the man before him. After he left, Wajin excitedly told Haesoo, "See, he insisted on ordering from you, and he only comes in when you're on shift." However, busy with work, Haesoo only noticed Rose today. He only learned from Wajin that Rose had been coming for months. "Anyway, in my opinion, that guy must have a thing for you." Hearing this, Haesoo shook his head helplessly. "He looks 10 years younger than me. Why would a young guy like an old woman?" Wajin wouldn't let it go, saying, "You don't know that older woman-younger man romances are popular lately. Maybe he really is interested. And you are actually very pretty, aren't you?" However, to Haesoo, such praise was just a lie made up to comfort a pitiful woman. Not only did he not feel happy, he felt embarrassed. After all, he couldn't even get love from his own man at home, yet he was hearing this from someone else. So, while Wajin was still trying to play matchmaker, Haesoo told her he already had a man. Returning home at night, Mincheol ordered Haesoo around as usual. Then while walking to the bathroom, he stripped, leaving Haesoo to silently pick up the dirty clothes. By the time he finished his shower, Haesoo had already fallen into an exhausted sleep. Looking at his wife's smooth back, Mincheol coughed twice and then reached out to grope Haesoo. Although he never used skincare and wore sloppy, old-fashioned clothes, it had to be said that Haesoo's body was as good as ever. However, no matter how he touched him, the woman's body remained as unresponsive as a log. This made Mincheol very frustrated. "You're not an inflatable doll. Can't you make a sound or react a bit?" Haesoo said he was tired from work, which made Mincheol furious. "Are you the only one working? You work a few part-time jobs and start acting up? Fine, what can I expect from such a cold, boring woman?" However, hearing Mincheol's insults, Haesoo simply closed his eyes in peace. Every day at 6 a.m., Haesoo woke up on time. Although the flower shop started at 8 a.m. to cook breakfast, for Mincheol, even waking up at 6 a.m. felt rushed. Because Mincheol wouldn't eat breakfast without soup. No matter how busy he was every morning, he would cook a fresh bowl of soup. Yet this resulted in the person actually cooking, often leaving on an empty stomach to make it to work on time. At 8 a.m., Haesoo arrived at the flower shop and put on his uniform. Despite his stomach growling, he could only wait until lunch, when the first customer of the day arrived and he heard that familiar low voice. Jesus looked up in surprise. It was indeed that man. Looking closely, Rose not only had a handsome face, but his voice was also very pleasant. For some reason, hearing the man reply in that deep voice made Jesus' ears feel a bit tingly, but just as he handed the receipt to Rose, his stomach let out a loud, poorly timed growl. However, the man didn't seem to react at all, and took the receipt. Jesus glanced at Rose awkwardly. Looking at him, he probably didn't hear it, right? Little did he know, Rose had already texted someone to send over a sandwich immediately. After he finished wrapping the bouquet and the man left, Jesus was surprised to find a sandwich left on the counter. Without hesitation, Jesus picked it up and chased after him. Your sandwich. You forgot it. To his surprise, Rose said calmly. This is a gift for you. Take it. Hearing this, Jesus was a bit flustered and immediately grabbed Rose as he was about to leave. No, I can't take this. Rose chuckled softly. Why not? Is it because there's no drink? He then handed over the coffee in his hand. I only took one sip. Please take it. It's not poisoned. Facing Rose's sincere gaze, Jesus was confused but didn't refuse again. Back in the shop, Wajin looked at the breakfast in his hand and became even more certain. He left that sandwich on purpose for you to eat. If that's not interest, what else could it be? But looking at his reflection in the window, facing such an exhausted woman with no makeup and medicated patches all over, he felt the man's behavior was more about pity than interest. After all, his stomach growled so loudly this morning. If it were me, I would feel sympathetic and find it hard to ignore. But if he really is interested in me, then I must draw a line immediately. Snapping back to reality, Jesus couldn't help but scold himself. It seemed his job was so boring that he was imagining strange things. Just then, Wajin asked curiously, what are you going to do now? Didn't you say you have a boyfriend? Are you going to reject Rose or dump your boyfriend for him? Hearing this, Jesus remained silent for a moment before telling her, it's not a boyfriend, it's my husband. Hearing this, Wajin immediately apologized. I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were married. But at this moment, a look of sadness crossed Jesus' face. It turned out that due to debt, he and Kang Mincheol had already divorced long ago. To save face, Mincheol never allowed him to call him husband in public. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mincheol, who had just started a new job, was receiving special attention from his colleague, Ari. Looking at the sticker on the paper cup, Mincheol couldn't help but smirk. During lunch break, a group of middle-aged men gathered to talk about the pretty women in the company. Thought Ari was interested in the newcomer, Mincheol. And you're single, right? Mincheol nodded, as if he couldn't believe it. Encouraged by everyone's hype, Mincheol decided to give it a shot. Back home at night, Jesus asked him how the new job was going, but he only got an impatient response. However, Jesus just wanted to clear the debt as soon as possible, as only then could they remarry. Hearing this, Mincheol mocked him. Of course we'll remarry after the debt is paid. Jesus, how could you? Survive without me, right? But don't push too hard. If a man is nagged by a woman every day, he'll definitely want to run away. At that point, he suddenly hugged Jesus from behind. Give me some pocket money. I want to buy perfume. Jesus was very confused. You never use perfume. Mincheol told him that at work, everyone dresses sharp, and even those old guys wear perfume. But hearing that it cost 1,000, Jesus was a bit hesitant. Mincheol got very upset. How old am I? Do you want me to use cheap stuff for kids? Whatever. Forget it if you don't want to give it. However, what Mincheol didn't know was that just for his employment, buying the suit and leather shoes this month had already been a huge expense. No matter how much he saved, this month's balance was still negative. Jesus decided to cut back on sleep and add a night shift at a convenience store. Although it was painful, he still took 200,000 from his advance salary to buy perfume for Mincheol. Then he left home to work at the barbecue restaurant. Meanwhile, on the other side, learning that BM Taeho was actually offering to buy him dinner, Ju Dongwook was in disbelief. Don't you hate noisy places? It's strange. You're a guy who wouldn't be caught dead in a cheap restaurant. More importantly, he's been in a particularly good mood lately. Elsewhere, Jesus overheard customers talking about how if a wife is virtuous and kind, a man will naturally go out to make money and support the family. This made him sink into thought. Once upon a time, Mincheol was also tender and affectionate toward him. Is it because I wasn't virtuous or kind enough that our relationship was ruined? But then the boss's shout suddenly came. Jesus, what are you doing? Serve the customers. Jesus immediately snapped back and went to greet them. But before he could even speak, he saw that familiar figure at the door. Jesus was a bit shocked. He didn't expect to run into Rose here too. It seemed he was there for dinner with a friend. For some reason, maybe because of Wajin's teasing at the flower shop, Jesus felt a bit awkward seeing Rose, a handsome young guy liking an older woman, though he never thought that way, let alone expected someone's concern. Just thinking about Wajin's nagging in his ear made Jesus feel deeply ashamed. He didn't even dare to look him in the eye. Listening to Rose talking with the girl beside him, Jesus wondered, is she his girlfriend? They look so good together. The bouquet he bought was probably for her too. At the same time, he scolded himself. After working with young people for so long, he had actually forgotten his place. However, noticing BM Taeho's wandering gaze, the girl beside him asked, Taeho, do you know that waitress? You've been looking at her since we got here. The next second, BM Taeho turned back with a smile. Yes, she's someone I know. He then asked, was it that obvious? The girl felt a bit awkward. She was actually just suspicious, but she didn't expect him to actually know her. Meanwhile, after Jesus got home, he found a tear in the clothes he wore today. He felt it was a waste to just throw them away. He planned to sew them up and wear them for a few more years. However, Mincheol saw that he wasn't lying to sleep, so he got up and snatched the clothes from Jesus' hands. Looking at the hole, Min Cheol gave him a contemptuous look. Are you trying to make a point so I'll buy you new clothes? Hey Sue, men won't like a pathetic woman like you. You don't dress up or wear makeup, and you wear stretched out underwear. You look like some old hag. It's disgusting. Those words. He silently reached out and took the receipt. Hey Sue glanced at Rose awkwardly. Based on his reaction, he probably didn't hear it, right? Little did she know, Rose had already texted someone to bring a sandwich over immediately, after she finished wrapping the bouquet and the man left. Hey Sue was shocked to find a sandwich left on the counter. Without a second thought, Hey Sue picked it up and chased after him. Your sandwich. You forgot it. To her surprise, Rose said calmly. This is a gift for you. Keep it. Hearing this, Hey Sue was a bit flustered and immediately grabbed Rose as he was leaving. No, I can't accept this. Rose chuckled. Why not? Is it because there's no drink? He then handed over his coffee. I only took one sip. Please. It's not poisoned. Take it. Faced with Rose's sincere gaze, Hey Sue was confused but didn't refuse again. Back in the shop, Wajin looked at the breakfast and felt even more certain. He left that sandwich on purpose for you. If that's not interest, what else could it be? But looking at her reflection in the window, facing such an exhausted, plain woman covered in medical patches, she felt the man's behavior was more likely pity than interest. After all, her stomach had growled so loudly this morning. If it were me, I would feel sorry for her too. But if he really is interested in me, then I must draw a line immediately. Snapping back to reality, Hey Sue couldn't help but scold herself. Her job must be so boring that she was imagining such strange things. Just then, Wajin asked curiously, what are you going to do now? Didn't you say you have a boyfriend? Are you going to reject Rose or dump your boyfriend for him? Hearing this, Hey Sue remained silent for a moment before saying, he's not my boyfriend, he's my husband. Wajin immediately apologized. I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were married. But at this moment, a look of sadness crossed Hey Sue's face. It turned out that due to debt, she and Kong Min Cheol had already divorced long ago. To save face, Min Cheol never allowed her to call him husband in public. Meanwhile, on the other side, the newly employed Min Cheol was receiving special attention from his colleague, Ari. Looking at the sticker on the paper cup, Min Cheol couldn't help but smirk. During lunch break, a group of middle-aged men gathered to talk about the pretty women in the company. Thought Ari was interested in the newcomer, Min Cheol. And you're single, right? Min Cheol nodded, as if he couldn't believe it. Encouraged by everyone's hype, Min Cheol decided to give it a shot. Back home at night, Hey Sue asked him how the new job was going, but he only got an impatient response. However, Hey Sue just wanted to pay off the debt soon, so they could remarry. Hearing this, Min Cheol mocked her. Of course we'll remarry after the debt is paid. Hey Sue, how could you survive without me? But don't push too hard. If a man is nagged by a woman every day, he'll definitely want to run away. At that point, he suddenly hugged Hey Sue from behind. Give me some money. I want to buy perfume. Hey Sue was very confused. You never use perfume. Min Cheol told her that at work, everyone dresses sharp, and even those old guys wear perfume. But hearing that it cost 200,000, Hey Sue was a bit hesitant. Min Cheol got very upset. How old am I? Do you want me to use cheap stuff for kids? Fine. Forget it if you don't want to give it. However, what Min Cheol didn't know was that just for his employment, buying the suit and leather shoes this month had already been a huge expense. No matter how much she saved, this month's balance was still negative. Hey Sue decided to cut back on sleep and add a night shift at a convenience store. Although it was painful, she still took 200,000 from her advance salary to buy perfume for Min Cheol. Then she left home to work at the barbecue restaurant. Meanwhile, on the other side, learning that BM Taeho was actually offering to buy him dinner, Ju Dong-wook was in disbelief. Don't you hate noisy places? It's strange. You're a guy who wouldn't be caught dead in a cheap restaurant. More importantly, he's been in a particularly good mood lately. Elsewhere, Hey Sue overheard customers talking about how if a wife is virtuous and kind, a man will naturally go out to make money and support the family. This made her sink into thought. Once upon a time, Min Cheol was also tender and affectionate toward her. Is it because I wasn't virtuous or kind enough that our relationship was ruined? But then the boss's shout suddenly came. Hey Sue, what are you doing? Serve the customers. Hey Sue immediately snapped back and went to greet them. But before she could even speak, she saw that familiar figure at the door. Hey Sue was a bit shocked. She didn't expect to run into Rose here too. It seemed he was there for dinner with a friend. For some reason, maybe because of Wajin's teasing at the flower shop, Hey Sue felt a bit awkward seeing Rose, a handsome young guy liking an older woman, though she never thought that way, let alone expected someone's concern. Just thinking about Wajin's nagging in her ear made Hey Sue feel deeply ashamed. She didn't even dare to look him in the eye. Listening to Rose talking with the girl beside him, Hey Sue wondered, is she his girlfriend? They look so good together. The bouquet he bought was probably for her too. At the same time, she scolded herself. After working with young people for so long, she had forgotten her place. However, noticing BM Taeho's wandering gaze, the girl beside him asked, Taeho, do you know that waitress? You've been looking at her since we got here. The next second, BM Taeho turned back with a smile. Yes, she's someone I know. He then asked, was it that obvious? The girl felt a bit awkward. She was actually just suspicious, but she didn't expect him to actually know her. Meanwhile, after Hey Sue got home, she found a tear in the clothes she wore today. She felt it was a waste to just throw them away. She planned to sew them up and wear them for a few more years. However, Min Cheol saw that she wasn't lying down, so he got up and snatched the clothes from Hey Sue's hands. Looking at the hole, Min Cheol gave her a contemptuous look. Are you trying to make a point so I'll buy you new clothes? Hey, Sue. Men won't like a pathetic woman like you. You don't dress up or wear makeup, and you wear stretched out underwear. You look like some old hag. It's disgusting. Those words instantly brought back Jesus' shameful and embarrassing memories. With a bitter face, she pleaded with Min Cheol to give the clothes back. Seeing her expression, Min Cheol felt a bit helpless. It wasn't like he had said much, right? Still, he pulled Jesus into his arms and comforted her. You don't know how to act cute, and you don't understand me. Even so, I'll keep living with you. After all, I'm all you have, right? Jesus had no expression. She only nodded in disbelief. Even with such a mundane and difficult life, she could only carry on because of Min Cheol's presence. The next morning, Jesus learned from the weather report that it would rain today. From the closet, she took out the family umbrellas and checked them. She found that one was broken but still usable, so she left the good one for Min Cheol to take to work. However, what Jesus didn't know was that the Min Cheol she cared so much about was at the company, hitting it off with a young female colleague. Meanwhile, after the flower shop opened, Rose arrived on time as usual, but Jesus felt awkward about meeting him. So before Rose could walk in, she used caring for the flowers as an excuse to slip to the back and hide. Just as he entered and saw this, BM Taeho irritably tugged at his collar, a look of displeasure on his face. Although the one serving him was Wajin, BM Taeho's gaze didn't linger on her for even a second. After the flower shop closed, Jesus was relieved that she hadn't run into him. But avoiding him like today wasn't a long-term solution. She decided to stop doing starting tomorrow. After all, the awkwardness would fade after a few days. However, just as she opened her umbrella to go to work at the convenience store, she unfortunately found that the umbrella that barely held up this morning was now completely broken and unusable. Even though it wasn't far to the convenience store, there was no way she could run through the downpour. Jesus didn't know what to do. If she contacted Min Cheol, he would definitely find her annoying. Yet, while she was hesitating, a large umbrella was quietly extended her way. Jesus looked up and saw Rose's large, reassuring frame. After a moment of silence, Rose asked softly, "Where do you live?" Jesus awkwardly tightened her hold on her bag strap. "No thanks. I live far away. You go ahead." Having said that, she instinctively took 2 steps back, but Rose immediately moved closer to her. "They say the heavy rain will last until midnight. Let's share the umbrella." Jesus felt like God was playing a joke on her. Everything was so perfectly timed that she couldn't avoid this man. Besides, this was his kindness. If she insisted on refusing, it would seem even stranger. So despite the slight awkwardness, Jesus accepted Rose's offer. However, on the way home, Rose unexpectedly didn't say a word to her. But thanks to the heavy sound of the rain, being under the same umbrella wasn't as uncomfortable as she had imagined. Perhaps because of the heavy rain, the tall Rose walked with a slow pace that didn't seem like his style. Jesus thought of Min Cheol. Whenever she walked with him, she was often left behind. She figured Rose must have formed a habit of looking out for others. So, feeling a bit guilty, she asked if she knew you were sharing an umbrella with a woman you don't know. Your girlfriend wouldn't be happy, right? Hearing this, Rose chuckled twice. Who said I have a girlfriend? Jesus felt a bit awkward. I thought that woman I saw at the barbecue restaurant. She's not my girlfriend, just an ordinary friend. Realizing she had been rude, Jesus her head away in embarrassment. But Rose thought she didn't believe him, so he leaned in closer. It's true. Please believe me. Just then, a car came driving by with its horn honking. Rose pulled Jesus closer to shield her in his arms, preventing her from getting splashed by the rain. Feeling the man's broad chest, Jesus' heart skipped a beat. Sorry, the car was going too fast. I was afraid you'd get hurt. Although Jesus said it was okay, she was actually startled by Rose's move. Suddenly, it felt as if something had brushed against her, making her freeze in place. She lowered her head, not daring to look at the man. To her surprise, Rose teased her on purpose. It's big, right? Jesus opened her mouth, but didn't know how to answer. My head is big, right? It blocked all the splashing water. Realizing she had misunderstood, Jesus lowered her head in shame. She noticed that one side of Rose's coat was soaked, while her own clothes hadn't been touched by the rain at all. Jesus asked him, why are you being so kind to me? Rose chuckled. I didn't expect my intentions to be discovered. I just want to get to know you. Jesus instinctively refused. You can't. You're so heartless. Then can I know why I can't? You're young and must be popular with girls. Why would you want to know? An older woman? While talking, they arrived at the entrance of Jesus' home. Before parting, Rose asked Jesus, are we going to keep acting like strangers now? Jesus replied calmly, yes, let's keep acting like strangers. I see. I'll listen to you. Having said that, he turned and disappeared into the rainy night. Jesus hadn't expected Rose to be so compliant. Watching his departing back, a piercing ache in her heart refused to dissipate for a long time. She didn't know why Rose would be interested in someone like her. Perhaps it was because he was young and full of curiosity. But when she opened the door, she found that the umbrella sheets specially left for Min Cheol hadn't been taken. Recalling the expectations of the barbecue restaurant customers, Jesus decided to go pick up Min Cheol from his company, thinking he would be very happy. However, she waited at the building entrance for a long time without seeing Min Cheol. Even when she called, it showed the phone was turned off. Jesus comforted herself, thinking they must have missed each other on the way. Since she didn't have an appointment, she'd better go home first. But just as she was about to turn and leave, she saw Min Cheol walking out under an umbrella with another girl. Drenched by the torrential rain, Jesus froze. Ari wondered why this person was staring at them. The Min Cheol beside her quickly explained. This is a relative of mine. She came to pick me up because of the rain. Then, he actively slipped under Jesus' umbrella. After sending Ari away, he sternly questioned why she had acted on her own. But at this moment, Jesus only wanted to know who that woman was. Seeing that he couldn't fool her easily. Min Cheol snatched the umbrella and said impatiently, I told you she's my colleague. Someone like you who has no friends wouldn't understand. Whenever a man and a woman are together, you assume that kind of relationship, right? Enough already, Hae-soo. Stop embarrassing me. Hae-soo was left speechless by the lecture. In a daze, that deep and slow voice seemed to ring in her ears again. It turned out she was making a fuss over insignificant matters. Again, the next day, Hae-soo went to the flower shop as usual. After a busy morning, Wajin was very depressed. Since she hadn't seen Rose's handsome face today, she didn't even have the energy to work. But just as they were about to close, Rose, though late, walked in with a cold expression. Watching the man stride toward her, Hae-soo, who had been tidying up newspapers, immediately asked if he wanted to order. However, as if in retaliation for her coldness last night, the usually gentle Rose ignored Hae-soo's greeting and walked past with a stoic face. This wealthy young master has the face of a dominant conqueror, but his heart is that of an obedient puppy. To pursue the flower shop lady 10 years his senior, he would punctually order 10 roses every day. Finally, during a chance encounter in a rainstorm, the man expressed his feelings face to face, only to be rejected by Hae-soo, who insisted they should remain strangers. Unexpectedly, the man said he would obediently listen to her. From that day on, Rose maintained a distance from Hae-soo. Although he still came to the shop daily, he now let Wajin handle his orders instead of Hae-soo. Hae-soo felt deeply relieved by this, grateful that Rose's feelings weren't that profound. After all, once such heavy emotions end, the resulting pain leaves indelible scars. Hae-soo understood this all too well. Since starting his new job, Kang Min-cheol had been coming home later and later. On weekends, he often didn't come home at all due to overtime. During a break, Hae-soo sent him many messages, but they were like stones dropped into the ocean. No response. Hearing someone call for her, Hae-soo quickly put away her phone to serve them. Meanwhile, at a dinner table, a newly appointed president was dining with his staff, occasionally flirting with the young female employees. After several rounds of drinks, alcohol began to cloud the president's mind. Looking at the beautiful, well-proportioned Hae-soo nearby, the middle-aged man felt restless. Based on his observations lately, this woman worked diligently and didn't even seem to know what luxury goods were. Emboldened by the alcohol, the president demanded that Hae-soo have a drink with him. Feeling he had lost face in front of his subordinates, the president stood up and flew into a rage, berating Hae-soo for having no sense of service. Alerted by other staff, the restaurant owner rushed out to apologize, offering some free barbecue. Unexpectedly, the president refused. How dare a mere waitress be so rude and arrogant to him? He demanded that Hae-soo kneel before him, or he wouldn't let the matter drop. At such a ridiculous request, the restaurant owner began to argue with him. Hae-soo knew how hard business was during an economic slump. To avoid causing trouble for the owner, she accepted the customer's demand, knelt down, and offered a sincere apology. After the shift, the owner felt very guilty. He told Hae-soo there was no need to do that. However, Hae-soo knew that the president had many employees who frequently dined there. The owner had been very considerate, often giving her salary advances, so she didn't want the restaurant to suffer losses because of her. Hearing this, the owner had mixed feelings, sensing that Hae-soo's life was very difficult. What he didn't know was that Hae-soo had been doing all sorts of jobs from a young age and had experienced similar things many times. Though she had spent countless nights too sad to sleep, Hae-soo's heart, while scarred, had grown as hard as stone. After closing, the owner offered to drive Hae-soo home, but when he learned she still had a night shift at the convenience store, he was puzzled. Asked her, "Do you owe a lot of money?" At the question, Hae-soo recalled the painful memory of debt collectors smashing her home. Small and helpless, she could only curl up in Min Cheol's arms and cry. Snapping back, Hae-soo nodded numbly. She then walked alone down the dark street. The sound of the night wind rattling old doors made her a bit nervous, fearing the debt collectors had returned. Yet, she still held hope for the future. Meanwhile, the middle-aged president was humming as he walked down an alley, thinking of his dominance at the restaurant earlier. He decided to approach that woman again next week, unaware that a figure had quietly appeared behind him. Hearing the foul words coming from his mouth, the long patient BM Taeho kicked him away. Before the president could get up, he was grabbed by the hair and lifted by BM Taeho. The man screamed like a stuck pig, but BM Taeho threatened him. "Punch me." Facing this chance for revenge, the middle-aged man didn't hesitate. As a trained boxer, his punch landed, instantly leaving a clear bruise on Taeho's face. However, feeling the blood at the corner of his mouth, he only smiled with satisfaction. But there was still business to finish. Looking at the man groveling like a stray dog, Taeho gave him a brutal beating and warned him never to provoke the wrong person again. Meanwhile, at the convenience store, Hae-soo was cleaning up trash. Although the night shift wasn't easy, she could at least sit and rest for a bit. When there were no customers, just as she closed her eyes, the sound of the door startled her awake. Hae-soo stood up instinctively to serve, only to be astonished that the person walking in was Rose. Could it really be such a coincidence? Hae-soo was skeptical, but since they had agreed to be strangers, she intended to treat him as a regular customer. But seeing the window stickers he brought to the counter, Hae-soo looked up in surprise and noticed the bruises on Rose's face and his split lip. She felt a pang of sympathy. What kind of monster would beat a kid like this? Although they had agreed to be strangers, the kind-hearted Hae-soo couldn't turn a blind eye to an injured boy. So, she kindly told him, "This won't work. If you don't use ointment, it might scar. What will you do then?" At this, Rose remained silent. Hae-soo felt a bit awkward and foolish, having agreed to act like Strangers, she was suddenly interfering again. Unexpectedly rose. His serious expression softened in an instant as he leaned on the counter and asked Haishio, "Then what should I do? Please teach me." Haishio felt very uneasy at his strange, submissive tone. She turned and left the service. Counter. "You are still very young, right? In that case, I won't use formal honorifics with you. Come with me." Fan Tai froze for a moment. Informal speech? I love it. He then took small, quick steps to follow Haishio. They bought healing ointment from a pharmacy, but Fan Tai claimed he didn't know how to apply it. Haishio sighed helplessly. "Forget it, I will do it. It might hurt a bit, so bear with it." As soon as she said that, the boy gasped. "Does it hurt?" "No, it just itches a little." "How old are you?" "I'm an adult. That is why I'm asking how old you are." "You're a grown man, and yet you're still out here fighting." He denied it immediately. "No, I wasn't." Haishio didn't believe him. "Then what happened to your face?" "It really wasn't my fault. It is just that my family's situation is like this." Hearing about his misfortune reminded Haishio of her younger self, also trapped in violence and poverty with no escape. Seeing her own shadow in him now made her feel deep sympathy for the boy. Sensing something in her eyes, the boy asked her, "Are you getting soft on me?" Haishio nodded. "Didn't you say you wanted to get to know me?" "Fine, starting now. Let's consider ourselves acquaintances." The boy got excited. "Then can I call you big sister?" "No, call me Andy." Though he didn't get his way, he was still happy. But then he thought of something, and his face became a bit gloomy. To him, Haishio was only doing this because she pitied him. Before leaving, she added his contact info and learned his name was Fan Tai. Looking at his messages and emojis, she told herself that just being friends should be fine. Then she checked Jiang Mingche's page again, but there was still no reply. Thinking he must be exhausted from adjusting to corporate life, Haishio decided not to disturb him. However, she didn't know that Jiang Mingche was currently at a company dinner. Noticing Yali was about to get drunk, he thoughtfully swapped her soju for a beer. Yali turned away shyly, secretly loving the feeling of being taken care of. At the table, people asked the single Jiang Mingche what kind of girls he liked. He chuckled. "Naturally, I like young women who are cute and know how to dress up." Yali's heart raced, because every single trait described her perfectly. After the party, Yali used her drunken state to confess her love to him and invited him to her place for more drinks. And so, in a room unknown to Haishio, Jiang Mingche betrayed the promises he had once made to her. The love was real once, but so is the fact that it's gone. An 18-year-old Jiang Mingche threw a punch at his bully, only to look up and see his 33-year-old self. While Haishio worked night shifts to pay off debt, the man who was once her light was messing around with another woman in some corner. At 6 a.m., she finished work and came home. Seeing the empty room, an ominous feeling flashed through her heart. After countless calls, Jiang Mingche finally picked up with annoyance. Hearing her concern, he used an angry tone to hide his guilt, claiming the dinner ended late, so he stayed out. He told her he was not a child and didn't need her hovering over everything. He hung up before she could respond. Listening to the dial tone, Haishio felt instinctively anxious, but his calm explanation made her feel like a clueless fool, so she told herself she was overreacting while praying nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, back at school, the usually low-key Fan Tai stopped Jihao, who came from a modest family. Jihao was very nervous. To him, they lived in two different worlds. Just as he thought he was being bullied for money, Fan Tai asked to swap shoes. Keep in mind, their shoes had a 100-fold price difference. Jihao had no idea what this meant, but facing his friendly request, he didn't dare refuse. Elsewhere, seeing him wearing worn-out shoes, Shiji was in disbelief. Fan Tai, he seemed like a different person lately. Even the songs he listened to were weird, with lyrics all about liking, loving, really loving, totally loving Andes. Yet he was totally immersed in it, and even asked if it sounded good. Meanwhile, at the flower shop, Huajin apologized. "I am so sorry, sister." Haishio was stunned. Huajin said that she thought the boy was interested in her, but she must have been mistaken. "He only places orders with me now. It seems I caused you to misunderstand, so I feel terrible." Haishio didn't know how to respond. She figured since they were just friends, there was no need to mention what happened. Plus, he seemed to be enjoying himself. So she kept quiet. Just as Huajin was talking about him, the boy walked in. Seeing the band-aid on his handsome face, she was shocked, but ready to serve him. However, he walked straight to Haishio. "I'm here for flowers," he said in a gentle tone. Haishio asked instinctively, "Which kind do you want?" He smirked. "We know each other now, don't we?" She got up immediately. "Then I will wrap a bouquet of roses for you." But as she picked them out, he followed her everywhere like a puppy, not saying a word, just staring at her intently. Their behavior startled Huajin. Had she missed some major plot point? When she finished, he asked expectantly, "What are you doing after work?" She sighed. "Are you looking for a scolding?" His eyes filled with a smile. "If it's from you, I don't mind." Haishio didn't want to continue this topic, so she told him she had another job and didn't have time to hang out. No. Didn't I see you at the barbecue place last time?" "Yeah, that's right." They chatted as they walked. "We finally met, yet you are busy every day. Adults are always busy. He sighed. That's why I hate being an adult. She was surprised. He still looked so young. Yet he acted so mature at times. But he was indeed very tall. He asked why she was looking at him. She asked, "Are you over 6'3"? It seems you know a lot about men's height." She went silent for a moment. Because I've lived with Ming Che for 13 years. I buy all of his clothes and underwear. Fan Tai, he felt a twinge of jealousy. Haishio looked confused. What? You're taller than Ming Che. There's no reason to be jealous. Fan Tai, he gave a helpless laugh. What is it? Why are you laughing? It's nothing. I can walk you to work. Surprisingly, Haishio didn't refuse. Along the way, she noticed his shoes were very old, so she asked him, where do you get the money to buy flowers every day? Wouldn't it be better to buy something else? Fan Tai, he countered with a question. There's no reason to stop buying flowers just because you're broke, right? For some reason, those words deeply moved her. Her once colorless world was suddenly filled with vibrant hues. She was always wrapping bouquets for others, but never thought to give one to herself. Realizing she had tried to judge him from a place of scarcity, Haishio felt ashamed. You're right. Thank you for walking me here today. Fan Tai, he paused for a moment, then smiled and handed the rose to her. If you want to thank me, let's see each other often from now on. Meanwhile, seeing Jiang Mingche getting along well with Yuli, his colleague was both envious and jealous. He belittled Yuli in front of him. She looks elegant, but she's nothing special. Once women get older, they become incredibly ordinary. Hearing him babble nonsense in his ear made Jiang Mingche very annoyed. I don't know why you're talking to yourself so much, but I don't find it funny at all. So, shut up, okay? However, even Jiang Mingche didn't expect that Yuli would happen to overhear those words as she walked by. When he returned to the office, Yuli threw herself into his arms. She had been worried. They say men lose interest quickly after getting what they want. But now, she was certain Jiang Mingche was special. She silently vowed to keep a man like him by her side forever. After work, they enjoyed a dinner date. While in the rental house, the steamed ribs Haishio made before her night shift went untouched. Working at the hotel, Haishio looked at Fan Tai's messages and emojis and couldn't help but smile. They felt innocent and clear, yet full of youthful romance. But a second later, a drunk man walked into the hotel and handed his ID to Haishio as if it were a bank card. He started acting like a jerk, demanding a companion. Just as she was struggling to deal with him, a burly man stepped in to help and held out a black card, demanding that she reserve all vacant rooms for him. Haishio was shocked, thinking she had misheard. Little did she know, this was all Fan Tai's doing. Seeing the message his subordinate sent him, he silently followed the troublemaker and beat him up. Because all the rooms were full, the hotel owner was thrilled and let Haishio leave work early. Finally having some rest time, she couldn't help but feel a bit of joy. Even the dark, scary alleyways felt warm tonight. But seeing the cold ribs back at home, her heart sank as well. Yet, she hadn't realized yet that all of this was a prelude to future misfortune. Late that night, while she was cooking, her phone vibrated. Fan Tai, he sent a message. I heard it's even colder than usual today, so dress warmly. 10 minutes later, it vibrated again. Don't work too hard. Rest for a bit before you keep going. Seemingly infected by his youthful energy, Haishio, who was feeling down, smiled. At almost the same time, Fan Tai, he was grinning at his phone. Though he didn't get a reply, he knew she had read his messages. The next morning, watching Haishio cook breakfast in their rental house, Jiang Mingche hugged her from behind. He gave her some rare compliments. It wasn't guilt from cheating. He just thought she looked particularly pitiful today. No matter what he did out there, this woman would always silently stand by him. This long-lost intimacy made her uncomfortable, thinking he was going to ask for money again. But he said, thank you for the perfume. Money. But seeing how hard you work, I really couldn't bring myself to use it. It's fine, go buy it. Getting the answer he wanted, he gave a cold laugh. As long as it's for me, nothing else matters. Obedient, boring, but incredibly kind Lu Haishio. About this, thinking. He slipped his hand under her clothes while biting the back of her neck. Though she didn't know how to act cute or how to resist, whenever she looked flustered and blushing, Jiang Mingche found it very entertaining. Finally, after she begged him, he let go so she could go to work. To him, she was like a flower he could pluck at will, beautiful but boring. But whenever he wanted, he could pick it and enjoy it. After she left for work, he chatted idly with Yuli. He remembered he still needed perfume. He had planned to go with Haishio, but then he remembered she didn't know anything about brands. She was so timid, just like a country bumpkin. Annoyed by the thought, he immediately changed his mind and messaged Yuli to go out together. A day passed, following Fan Tai's orders. His men took secret photos of Jiang Mingche's date, but he knew this alone wouldn't make her give up completely. Meanwhile, dozing off at work, her phone ringer woke her up. It was a message from Fan Tai. Can we meet after you're off? Worried that something had happened to the kid again, she told him to wait for her on the way to the convenience store. However, just as she stepped out of the hotel, she found him waiting at the door. Seeing him, she was surprised. You look different today. More like an adult. His tone was flatter than usual. Really? I just wanted to see you for a moment. Do you still have to work? Yeah. She nodded. It's okay. This alley gets very dark at night. Let me walk you to the convenience store. An adult wouldn't be scared of this. He laughed and turned his head away. But I'm scared. She didn't believe him. You're so big. How could you be scared? He gave an unbelieving laugh. Then I'll walk behind you. Like this. She felt a bit helpless with him. No need. Just walk beside me. He was very obedient. But as he prepared to step forward, he saw the mark on her neck. It made him incredibly jealous. But even so, he still stepped behind her gently to block her from view. Only by trimming the withered flowers can one accept the late-blooming rose. Haishio found lipstick from another woman on his clothes. This was a sign of misfortune, the beginning but also of her happiness. It turned out that just moments ago, Fan Tai had discovered the hickey on her neck. Though he was jealous a second ago, he suddenly walked behind her. He grabbed her shoulders. Haishio gasped. What's wrong? Tai stroked her neck and said softly. It looks like you have a mosquito bite here. Haishio was puzzled. It is winter, and it doesn't even itch. Suddenly, as if she realized something, her face turned bright red. She immediately covered her neck with her hand and said, guiltily, yeah, it must be a mosquito bite. Hearing this, his tone became calm again. Right, I knew it. As he spoke, he pointed to her neck. Let me put a band-aid on it for you. Haishio didn't. Refuse, feeling relieved. Luckily, the kid is innocent. If anyone else saw this, she would have been mortified. However, as his thumb brushed against her skin, she shivered slightly, feeling a wave of shyness. Then, Fan Tai asked her, why haven't you replied to my messages lately? Haishio was confused and nervous. What should I say? I wasn't feeling well yesterday. The bruises were burning and stinging. She pretended to be angry. Then why only use a band-aid instead of ointment? He chuckled. It's because you didn't text me back. I felt really hurt. Her heart twinged. Since she had no friends and never contacted anyone, receiving these chatty messages left her unsure of how to respond. To be honest, she didn't even realize messages required a reply. But hearing him say he was hurt, she suddenly understood. So every time Jiang Mingche ignored her texts, that feeling was called being hurt. She looked at him apologetically. I am sorry. I haven't really texted people before, so I didn't know how to reply. Being friends with someone my age must be really boring, right? She lowered her head in shame. Sensing her mood shift, he used her collar to hide the ugly band-aid and comforted her. You don't need to feel sorry. I'm the one who wants to contact you, so I just message you whenever I feel like it. The person receiving one-sided affection has no right to hold the other person responsible. So don't feel bad, and don't force yourself to do things you don't want to just because you're afraid of hurting someone. In short, do whatever you want, as long as it's what you truly feel. Haishio didn't realize yet how deeply these words would be etched into her mind. After thinking it over all day before going home, one thing became crystal clear. Although she was never one for extravagance, she suddenly went to the flower shop and bought a single rose as a gift to herself. She never imagined that just one rose could bring so much life to her dilapidated home. She took a photo with her phone, about to share this moment with Fan Tai. But being sensitive, she worried it might be too much. Recalling his words, she finally sent the picture. Just then, Jiang Mingche came home. He had planned to change and head out on a date with Yili, but when he saw that bright red rose on the table, he froze. Haishio explained nervously in a small voice, I know. Our situation doesn't allow for flowers, so I only bought one. Just one. But at that moment, he lost his temper. He walked over to her and pinned her to the floor with unreasonable force. He had planned to mess around with another woman tonight, but seeing Lu Haishio, who was usually so plain and awkward, acting like a woman coming home with a flower, he felt a rush of heat. His head felt like it was on fire as he forcefully took everything from her. Perhaps because this person is so tall, it had been a while he was just like as impatient as a teenager. Then Haishio reminded him, today is a risky day for pregnancy. A surge of unexplained rage exploded in his mind. He choked her and spat out with hatred. What does it matter anyway? You can't even get pregnant, can you? Those words cut deep into her heart. Jiang Mingche lost all interest in continuing. He turned and left to meet Yili, leaving her lying on the floor in despair. Elsewhere, seeing her message, a smirk formed on Fan Tai's face. Suddenly, two girls walked over. Since meeting at the barbecue place, they hadn't expected to run into him here and thought it was quite a coincidence. But to him, nothing in this world is an accident. The ending was decided from the start. This would be a heartbreaking story. Just then, Haishio picked up his dirty laundry to wash, but a second later, seeing the lipstick stain on the shirt, her already broken heart sank into an abyss. Meanwhile, Jiang Mingche was already impatiently pinning Yili down in the car. The repressed urge made him even crazier tonight. Haishio, who was at work, was still distracted by the lipstick on the shirt. She accidentally dropped a glass on the floor. She tried to comfort herself, thinking maybe someone just bumped into him, or that it was something unavoidable. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't fully convince herself. Her fragile heart was already screaming, but the suffocating numbness prevented her from shedding a single tear. Usually, she could bury these sad thoughts by working, but today, every painful memory she tried to hide surfaced. Whenever she felt life was too much, she only needed to hope for a better tomorrow to keep going. But now, she was lost, wondering how far Jiang Mingche had already gone. While she was crying internally, a motorcycle stopped in front of the convenience store. Seeing her looking more haggard than usual, Fantai he felt both angry and heartbroken. Whenever she tried to break free, that demon would pull her back and destroy her. He didn't know how much he had hurt her today, nor did he know how to take her pain away. Being stared at by a strange man, she felt a bit uneasy, wondering why he was staring at her like that. But as she was thinking that, the man in the helmet suddenly held up his phone with text on the screen. "Can I call you big sister?" Her tension immediately melted into a sigh of relief. "You again? Are you looking for a scolding?" He didn't say a word, just chuckled. "Why are you wearing a helmet?" "I just got off work." She was surprised. "Are you working a delivery job?" He thought for a moment and figured that was a good explanation. "Yeah, something like that." Seeing the band-aid on his face, she felt worried. "Be careful. That kind of work can be dangerous." "Are you worried about me?" "Worried about you?" Haishio gave him a mock-angry glare. "What's there to love about you? Go stand over there and put your hands up. That's your punishment for joking around." Little did she know, though it was just a passing joke, if you hate it, Fantai happily accepted the penalty. Promised. Surprisingly, seeing his beaming Haishio had only Haishio left him be. A bit later, when Fantai mentioned he was hungry, Haishio got annoyed on his behalf, telling him to quit that job. What a jerk of a boss, not even letting a kid eat. Hearing this made Fantai think back to his actual work today. It wasn't delivery. He had spent the whole time watching Jiang Mingche cheat. The wait was agonizing, but victory was near. He leaned down behind Haishio and told her he had to keep going because it was a very, very important matter. Haishio misunderstood, thinking he couldn't quit because of family financial issues. Not wanting him to stay hungry, she offered to buy him some instant noodles. But Fantai he replied, "I appreciate the gesture, but I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. My own incompetence is more than I can handle. But why don't you pick the best tasting one for me?" As he spoke, he suddenly rested his hand on the shelf. Noticing the tattoo on his hand, Haishio was stunned. She then asked with genuine concern about what was on his wrist. Fantai's heart skipped a beat. He assumed she hated tattoos because they made him look like a delinquent. He pulled his sleeve down to hide it. Noticed the scar beneath the ink. She took his hand and looked up, asking how he got such a scar. Hearing this, his once worried eyes brightened. Though Haishio tried to act calm, Fantai could hear the slight tremor in her voice and see the expression of someone about to cry on her behalf. His heart raced. To prolong the sight of her being sad for him, he decided to tease her further. He told her it was just an accident and not what she thought. "Don't worry." Haishio could tell he was lying, but the scar looked old, so she decided to ask him about it later. Just then, Fantai he picked a box of noodles to eat. Haishio swapped it for another one. "Eat this one instead." "Why? This expensive one tastes better." "Okay." Watching him eat quietly, she felt a bit overwhelmed by his presence. Yet strangely, she didn't hate it at all. Perhaps his appearance allowed her to temporarily forget the gloom caused by Jiang Mingche. While Fantai he was soothing Haishio's uneasy heart, Jiang Mingche was lying with Yuli. Hearing the girl say she wanted to marry him made him choke. "You're still young. Why the rush to get married? You should enjoy your youth while you have it." Yuli, who was initially annoyed by his reaction, was moved by his seemingly mature outlook. Feeling her hug him tightly, Jiang Mingche was speechless. He just wanted a casual fling, but Yuli was actually catching feelings. Still, having a car and a house at her age, her family must be wealthy. Even her hair. Compared to the scentless Lu Haishio, her perfume was intoxicating. Suddenly, Yuli asked him, "Don't you ever think about getting married?" He went silent for a moment. "Yeah, I've thought about it." Yuli looked curious. "Oh, what did you imagine married life would be like?" Jiang Mingche fell into a memory. In his younger years, he had dreamed of living in a modest apartment, raising a cute child with Lu Haishio. But the reality was that her body was frail, making it hard to conceive. While he felt resentful at times, he knew deep down that even if it weren't for her condition, raising a child in their current situation would be a luxury. Meanwhile, Fantai he stood alone on a rooftop in the cold wind, reflecting on what happened. He held out his left hand and asked his subordinate what it looked like. Without exception, everyone said it was a tattoo. He smirked, while everyone else only saw the ink. Haishio was the only one who saw the pale scars beneath the black letters. The more he thought about it, the more restless he became. He had intended to wait like an adult until Haishio's relationship reached its end, but now he found himself in pain, a pain rooted in his love for her. He realized he could no longer resist the impulse and decided he had to do something. At the same time, on her way home from work, Haishio ran into the rowdy restaurant owner from before. To her surprise, as soon as he saw her, he fled like a mouse seeing a cat. Confused, she didn't dwell on it. When she got home, she found Jiang Mingche had already fallen asleep, just as she was about to. Lying down, Heisu noticed a call on Jiang Mingche's phone from Yali. He hesitated for a long time as a surge of anger began to boil deep inside, urging him to pick up and confront the woman on the other end. Why was she calling this late, and was their relationship really just professional? Heisu had so many questions, but in the end, he couldn't reach out. He was terrified of an answer he couldn't handle. While he wavered, the call ended. Heisu tried to tell himself it must be about work, but even so, he couldn't put his mind at ease. The next day at the flower shop, Hua Jin shared wedding photos of a relative. Dreaming of the day she could wear a dress like that. Remembering Heisu was already married, she curiously asked if the ceremony had been hectic and what kind of dress she chose. Heisu was blindsided by the questions. In reality, his marriage to Jiang Mingche was just a quick stamp at the registry office. Feeling guilty for the lack of a ceremony, Jiang Mingche had promised, "Once things at home get better, I'll give you a real wedding. You'll wear a beautiful dress, a ring with a massive diamond, and we'll honeymoon in Hawaii." Although Heisu never demanded anything. What girl doesn't dream of a grand wedding? He cherished that promise, even though it never happened. Now that they were no longer legally married, it didn't really matter to Heisu. As long as their feelings stayed the same, he didn't need diamonds to feel like his life was shining every day. Meanwhile, Fan Taiha was frustrated. He wanted to get closer to Heisu, but no matter how much he persisted, Heisu ignored his messages. He regretted not taking a few more punches that day. Just then, Zai leaned in with a lighter, trying to light the cigarette in his mouth. Looking at his fawning expression, Fan Taiha pulled a lollipop out of his mouth, saying he didn't need a light. Zai felt awkward after making such a fool of himself. A second later, Fan Taiha asked if he had ever buried anyone. Little did Zai know, Fan Taiha was already thinking of killing Jiang Mingche. He calmly told him that soon there might actually be a need for some digging. Fan Taiha wasn't joking, and Zai broke into a cold sweat. Even though he dreamed of being a mobster like in the movies, he wasn't sure he had the guts. That said, despite his young looks, he was just like the chairman. Both made him feel uncomfortable. Back at the shop, Heisu overheard a customer venting to a friend about her husband's infidelity. The description of the husband started to mirror Jiang Mingche, the frequent overtime, dressing up more than usual, and that unsettling feeling of something being wrong. The growing dread became a physical pain in his chest, making it hard to breathe. He was so shaken that he couldn't focus on work anymore. For the first time, he asked his boss for time off. Seeing how pale he looked, the boss offered to take him to the hospital. But Fan Taiha's voice echoed in his mind. "Just follow your heart. You can do whatever you want." That low voice gave him strength. Usually frugal, he took a cab straight to Jiang Mingche's office. The customer's words felt like they were meant for him. Cheaters always leave clues. If you don't want to be a fool, you need proof. But Heisu wasn't there for that. He just wanted to prove to his aching heart that Jiang Mingche would never do that. Even though nightmares soaked his pillow every night, and even though the spark of their youth had faded, his love for him remained as strong as ever. A manager coming back from the restroom saw him and said, outsiders weren't allowed. Heisu hesitated before trembling, saying he was a relative of Jiang Mingche and wanted to check if he was working late. Even now, he didn't want his presence to cause trouble for Mingche. The manager found it odd because Mingche hadn't mentioned overtime. Heisu stood there, feeling like he was suffocating. Luckily, the manager let him in, hearing someone was there for Mingche. Yali looked up curiously. Meanwhile, a confused Jiang Mingche saw Heisu, and a wave of humiliated rage washed over him. Instinctively, he grabbed Heisu's arm and grimly told him to get outside. Heisu's arm hurt from the grip, but the more he resisted, the harder Mingche pulled until they were in a secluded corner. He pinned him against the wall and hissed, "What the hell are you doing? This is embarrassing. Why did you come here for no reason? Are you out of your mind?" Heisu tried to speak, but he was shaking with fear. His mind was blank, and all he could manage to stammer out was, "I'm so scared." The one who doesn't love acts recklessly, while the one who does walks on eggshells. After years of being manipulated, Heisu finally found the courage to ask about the lipstick on Mingche's clothes. But Mingche was only furious that he had shown up to humiliate him. Seeing him flip out, Heisu froze. Years ago, a drunk Jiang Mingche had smashed up their home while Heisu huddled on the floor, helpless. Since then, any loud noise would make his body stiffen. Years of misery were now hardwired into his trembling heart as a survival instinct. As Ming Che continued to scream at him, Jesus felt innocent yet abandoned. He wanted to explain, but even opening his mouth felt impossible. Then, that low voice echoed in his ears again. You can do whatever you want. In that moment, the fear in his eyes vanished and his body stopped shaking. He found his voice and asked, the mark on your shirt. I don't wear any, so it definitely isn't mine. But tell me, how did it get there? And whose makeup is it? Seeing Jesus confront him so firmly, Jiang Mingche froze. He couldn't remember the last time Jesus got angry. It must have been 13 years ago. At that thought, his anger cooled, and he finally let go of Jesus, pinning him no more. Still, his tone remained harsh. Are you afraid I'm messing around with someone else? Is that why you're acting crazy? Do you have some dependency issue? Having used up all his courage, Jesus began to tremble again, clutching his hands to his chest. Even though Ming Che was the one in the wrong, the soft-spoken Jesus was always the one left speechless. The one who doesn't love can be reckless, while the one who does must be careful. Knowing him too well, Ming Che acted annoyed, claiming it must have just rubbed off by accident. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's exhausting. Are you actually losing it? If you have nothing else to say, I'm going back in. Don't come looking for me again. He left Jesus leaning against the wall, helpless. He got the answer he wanted, but he wasn't happy at all. On the way home, Jesus walked like a ghost, his eyes vacant as he bumped into people on the street. One man was about to yell at him for not watching where he was going, but a second later, Fantai's massive frame bumped into that man instead. Gripping his shoulder, the man was stunned, thinking he had hit a brick wall. Fantai had just looked back coldly and warned him to watch his step next time. Snow started to fall as they walked. 100 steps, 20 steps. Fantai closed the gap until he was only 10 steps behind. His expression darkened. At this distance, anyone should have noticed him. But Jesus' heart was entirely with another man. Even if I were only 3 steps away, you still wouldn't see me. It felt like his heart was being ripped open. He tried so hard to stay hidden, but deep down, he wanted to be caught, even if it meant getting yelled at. That's why he hovered around the person he loved every day, sending messages that went unanswered. Despite being broken, Jesus only had eyes for someone else. He was missing the changing seasons, missing his youth, and missing the beauty of the first snow. Ignored by his love, Fantai sent a text telling him to stay warm. The light snow turned into a downpour. Jesus stopped, his pain and anxiety finally hitting a breaking point. The tears he had held back for so long flooded out. He collapsed in the rain, sobbing over 13 years of heartache. The rain soaked him. The person he loved was hurting right in front of him, but he had no right to comfort him. He felt like a fool for thinking that if he just waited a little longer, Jesus and Ming Che would finally be over. He swore to himself that today would be the last time he just watched from the sidelines while Jesus cried. The next morning at work, Hua Jin saw Jesus' swollen eyes. Hey, what's wrong with your eyes? I just had ramen last night. Was it some kind of ghost pepper ramen? With only 10 minutes until opening, he had planned to make up with Ming Che, but Ming Che hadn't come home all night. Remembering their anniversary was coming up, Jesus decided to take the day off to apologize over dinner. While he was planning his day, a coffee cup tapped his head. Jesus turned around and heard Fantai's playful voice. Slacking off? Jesus looked confused. Huh? Fantai poked at his swollen eyes. Jesus cried out in pain and rubbed them. I'm not slacking. We aren't even open yet. Fantai had teased him further. You don't have anything to say? You didn't reply to my texts, so I just showed up. Did you think I'd get mad? Jesus had gotten used to him being around. So you knew I'd get mad? Do you want me to punish you? Jesus shook his head. Never mind. He glanced at Fantai and shyly asked, You don't have some kind of weird kink, do you? Fantai played dumb. What kind of kink? You know, liking being yelled at. Like just now. Fantai couldn't help it anymore. He covered his eyes and laughed. Stop laughing. I'm being serious. I said stop. His words had a strange effect. Fantai stopped laughing immediately. He didn't actually have a kink. But if it was Jesus, he didn't mind anything. After the joke, Fantai asked hopefully, From now on, I'll pick you up even without asking. Jesus shrugged. Do whatever you want. But then he remembered. Oh, not this Friday. Why not? Because that day is my anniversary. Fantai gave a light smile, but he was annoyed. Anniversary? Aren't you guys divorced? He imagined saying it out loud and wondered what kind of face Jesus would make. Of course, he couldn't do it. He couldn't bear to see Jesus suffer. Instead, he said, If it were me, I'd hate for the person I like to be seeing someone else. I'd hate for someone else to pick you up or hold an umbrella for you because I want to be the only one doing that. So please don't be like that with anyone else. He was telling Hae-soo he hated him being with Ming-che, but he was also trying to remind him that the person Ming-che was holding an umbrella for wasn't him. Then he asked again, is that guy really your husband? Hae-soo shrunk back, saying it was normal to share an umbrella with a friend. Anyway, just don't come that day. He was trying to argue with Fan Taeha, but he was really just trying to convince himself. Fan Taeha looked at him blankly. Hae-soo, you're such a fool. Your man is lying to you and messing around with another woman. Underscore. You're so kind that you're even scared of being swayed by me, not knowing what to do. But then, as if something crossed his mind, he promised Hae-soo, I won't contact you that day. In fact, I just won't come see you at all this week. Go enjoy yourself. Have a wonderful time with your husband. Watching Fan Taeha walk away, Hae-soo was left confused, unaware of the despair he was about to face. Just a moment ago, Yali woke up and recalled the conversation with her best friend the other morning. She had been bragging about how Jiang Ming-che was not only handsome but, at 33, still looked so young. On top of that, he's got great stamina. He can just pick me up and toss me around. Yali spoke with increasing excitement, her eyes full of love for him. However, her friend asked skeptically, don't you think that's a bit strange? How is a guy that great still single? At 33? Those words were like a thorn in Yali's side. It wasn't painful, but it made her feel uneasy. So she asked him again, I want to go see your place, Appa. Hearing this, Jiang Mingche looked annoyed. Why are you bringing this up? Again, your place is so nice. Why do you want to go to mine? But then he thought about it. Yali was just starting her career, and the money she made couldn't afford a place like this, spacious, near the subway, and convenient for work. It meant her family was actually wealthy. Jiang Mingche couldn't help but imagine, if I lived with a woman like her, wouldn't my life be much smoother? Besides, even if I dump Hae-soo, he'll still be right there, guarding that shack like a beggar, waiting for me to come home every day. Hae-soo loves me deeply even if he doesn't show it. But does he really know love? He doesn't know how to relax or be playful. He's like a block of wood, always so stiff, no matter what I do. He's like an emotionless doll. It makes me so mad. But for some reason, Hae-soo's disappointed face from last night flashed in his mind. He smiled. Even though I lost my temper, I was actually pretty happy. I thought that, boring, wouldn't Hae-soo would finally show some pain because of me. Seeing that he wasn't listening to her, Yali got a bit angry, but Jiang Mingche just pulled her into his arms. For some reason, a sick thought crossed his mind. He couldn't get caught cheating, but just thinking about Hae-soo being driven to despair gave him a twisted sense of pleasure. So he agreed to her request. All right, you win. Since I have no parents and never went to college, I'm just an uneducated nobody. So I've been staying at that relative's place you saw the other day. If you saw what that house looks like, you'd probably run away. To his surprise, Yali looked sympathetic and said she didn't care. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are, Appa. Hearing that, Jiang Mingche hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing to take her home. Soon, the day of Hae-soo's anniversary arrived. Seeing Jiang Mingche get out of bed, Hae-soo, who had already taken the day off, asked if he was free tonight, but he had already forgotten the day's significance. He just casually said he didn't know if he had to work late. Hae-soo was disappointed and decided to ask again later. But as the workday went on, he still finished his tasks with hope and joy. When it was time to leave the flower shop, Hae-soo excitedly pulled out his phone, but the reply he got made his heart sink. Even so, he had to act like it was no big deal and told Jiang Mingche that he also had to work late, so just focus on work and don't worry. Hae-soo felt like a fool. He knew it was better to live without expectations. Yet he always hoped he would remember today was a special day. Completely let down, he canceled his time off and planned to go to his part-time job at the restaurant. Zai followed and saw everything. Meanwhile, after hearing that Hae-soo was working the night shift, Jiang Mingche took the opportunity to sneak Yali into the house, feeling like their relationship was moving forward. Yali looked a bit shy. She felt that this was more like how adults should date. Jiang Mingche warned her that the heating wasn't great and it might be cold, but she just grabbed his hand. It's okay as long as you hold me. Your hands are so warm. Appa, I love it. Seeing this, any shred of humanity left in him vanished. You chose this path, thinking that a woman would actually want to step into a prison like this. He figured that Hae-soo, who had lived in this cold poverty for over a decade, wouldn't find it a big deal either. In a corner nearby, Fan Taeha watched everything. Once they went inside, he immediately called Zai. I need a change of clothes, ASAP. I'm in a hurry. Finally, at the last step of his plan, Fan Taeha's eyes were full of anticipation. Meanwhile, seeing that the house was old but very clean, Yali was surprised. As a woman, she knew how much hard work that took. You're really amazing, Appa. Jiang Mingche felt a bit awkward since Hae-soo did all the work, but hearing it still felt good. Because there was no heat, Yali soon started to feel the chill. Seeing this, he immediately pulled her into the bedroom. A kid like, you would catch a cold staying here for a day. We should just go to your place from now on. Yali shook her head happily. No, I told you. As long as I'm with you, I'm fine. You're so warm. Why do I need a heater? Hearing this, he couldn't help but remember the recent drop in temperature. Hae-soo would shiver every night in his sleep. At first, he wanted to hold him to keep him warm, but before reaching out, he immediately dismissed the idea. Whatever, he'll sleep. Just fine. He had gotten used to the sight of Hae-soo's back as he slept. It was like a permanent wound that drove him to fall further and further. At the same time, Fantai had changed into the clothes he prepared and went to the convenience store. His goal was clear. He cleared out all the warm packs in the store. Seeing the full basket, the clerk was shocked, thinking he was going hiking in the winter. Little did she know, he just wanted to warm himself up quickly. Soon after, Hae-soo's co-workers from the restaurant were resting outside. The next second, Fantai walked up with a bright red face. Excuse me. Could you please ask Luo Hae-soo to come outside? Surprised that someone was looking for him so late, a blush crept over Hae-soo's face. Could it be Ming-che? Not knowing what to expect, he was suddenly filled with anticipation. Did he pretend to forget our anniversary just to surprise me by showing up here? This excitement made him anxious as he hurried out of the restaurant, calling out Jiang Mingche's name with high hopes. But seeing no one outside, Hae-soo froze in confusion. A second later, Fantai suddenly hugged him from behind, constantly calling him Hyung. Feeling the hot breath against his ear, Hae-soo shied away awkwardly. I told you not to call me that. Seriously, what if someone hears you? If you do this again, I'll actually scold you. Watching Hae-soo's ears turn red, Fantai chuckled softly. No, it was then that Hae-soo realized something was wrong with his body. He asked worriedly, are you okay? Come here, let me see. Obeying the command, Fantai leaned his face in close, touching his face and feeling the heat radiating from him like a fireball. Hae-soo's expression shifted to one of deep concern. Fantai apologized in a very weak voice. I'm sorry, I promise not to contact you, but I think I'm sick. Where does it hurt? Tell me. I'm not sure. I think I have a fever. If it's this bad, why did you come here? You should be home resting. Fantai acted dejected. I can't go home. Though he didn't explain why, his teary eyes pierced Hae-soo's heart. He remembered the boy saying his situation was unfortunate, so going home probably meant he couldn't rest properly. Perhaps even those injuries he saw before were caused by his family. At that thought, Hae-soo told him to wait a moment while he went inside. Fantai panicked, instinctively grabbing his hand. Hae-soo sighed. I'm just going to ask the boss for leave. I'm not leaving you. Hearing this, Fantai finally relaxed. I'll wait for you. Soon, the two walked home together along the familiar streets. Looking at the boy, Hae-soo remembered Ming-che's saying he'd be home late. He decided to give Taiha some medicine and let him rest a bit. But he was so tall, the room might feel too small for him. Since he's sick, he won't mind curling up, right? Noticing Hae-soo's gaze, Fantai smiled. Hae-soo found it strange. What did you do that's so good that you can't stop grinning? You're a grown man, and you still got sick. It's nothing. I'm just happy because I haven't seen you in a while. Hae-soo spoke gently, as if soothing a child. That's all it takes to make you happy. Then just come see me like you used to. Don't force yourself to stay away. It felt a bit lonely not seeing you at my shift. Thinking of what was about to happen, Fantai's gaze hardened. I understand. From now on, I will come to see you every single day. Looking at the ever-smiling boy, Hae-soo felt a daze. He knew he could no longer avoid this innocent, harmless smile. Before they knew it, they were at Hae-soo's front door. But right at the entrance, Hae-soo suddenly stopped. At first, he just wondered why the lights were on. But a second later, he heard the unmistakable sounds of a man and a woman coming from inside. Shaking, he tried to open the door, but his arm felt like lead. He couldn't find the courage to face the truth behind that door. Until he heard the woman inside call out Jiang Mingche's name. Any lingering hope in Hae-soo's heart vanished instantly. Recalling everything, from school to marriage, Hae-soo had given Ming-che his absolute trust. But now, that love was shattered. 13 years of memories and the youth they shared together. All of it was torn to shreds. About 15 minutes later, seeing Hae-soo standing there in a daze, unable to let go, Fantai leaned in and whispered in his ear. Don't run away. Don't hide. Listen clearly, and then face the end of your love. That cold voice pulled Hae-soo back to reality. That slow voice seemed to tell him that this love had ended a long time ago. This marriage hadn't been shining like the past he clung to. It had faded away without him noticing. Even so, Hae-soo struggled to accept it. He pulled his shoulders away from Fantai's hands. He didn't run away. He was going to stand up for himself after giving away half his life. Seeing Hae-soo look more determined than ever, Fantai was stunned, but then he couldn't help but smile. I thought you'd just run away. I didn't expect you to be so decisive. Meanwhile, Hae-soo marched toward the bedroom. While the two were still in bed, the door was slammed open. Jiang Mingche. Hae-soo walked in, filled with resentment. Jiang Mingche's mind went blank. He never expected Hae-soo to come back so soon. Beside him, Yali asked in confusion, is this woman the relative you were talking about? The word relative hit Hae-soo like a sledgehammer. He questioned, his first love of 13 years. Tell me, Jiang Mingche, are we just family? But Jiang Mingche didn't answer. Instead of answering, she just nagged about why he was back so soon. As Jiang Mingche tried to leave, Haishou rushed up, grabbed his clothes, and interrogated him hysterically. Where are you going? Answer me. Are we just acquaintances? Am I even family to you? Jiang Mingche, you're telling a woman you've lived with for 13 years that we're just family? Do you even have a soul? Realizing the truth, Yali looked at him with pure disgust. She left the room without even looking back. Panicking, Jiang Mingche immediately chased after her to explain, there's really nothing special between us. We were married, sure, but the divorce was a long time ago. I swear, now she isn't even considered family. She's just a stranger. Hearing this, Haishou felt like she'd been struck by usually one to avoid conflict. She was so furious that she grabbed Jiang Mingche by the hair. Damn it, Luo Haishou. Are you crazy? Let go of me right now. I won't. Haishou yanked his hair with all her might, crying out in pain and betrayal. She questioned him. How could you do this to me? How can you say I'm a stranger? But her frail strength was no match for a man. After a brief struggle, Jiang Mingche violently threw Haishou aside. With a loud thud, she hit the dining table and collapsed. The spilled water soaked her clothes, leaving her feeling as cold and damp as her heart. Fed up, Jiang Mingche dropped his act and told her with pure hatred, I'm sick of this crappy life. So yeah, I saw another woman. She's younger, kinder, and richer than you. So we slept together a few times, okay? Seeing Haishou's look of despair, a flash of vengeful satisfaction crossed his eyes. He then mocked her coldly. So even if I cheated on you, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to break up with me? If you have the guts, then go ahead and try. With that, he left to win back Yali, leaving Haishou slumped on the floor alone. Slowly, the water from the broken cup reached her side. When she looked up, all she saw was that rose lying on the ground. Haishou had originally thought this would be a beautiful new beginning. Gradually, she could no longer hold back her tears. Haishou reached out with trembling hands to touch her chest, feeling like she was suffocating. Tears streamed down her face as her sobs grew louder. Meanwhile, Jiang Mingche was still trying to lie to Yali, claiming Haishou was the one clinging to him, and that his heart belonged only to Yali. Hearing this, Fantai's gaze turned even colder. He really should have just killed him. Looking at the man who made Haishou wither away, a sliver of calm returned to Fantai's eyes. How could he let him off that easily? No way. He wanted to use the slowest, deepest, and most brutal way to pay Jiang Mingche back for everything. Looking at the heartbroken Haishou in the room, he had actually been quite happy because Haishou had finally abandoned him. But now he realized his heart ached terribly. Even though he had longed for Haishou's relationship to break, seeing her collapse like this made his whole chest feel bruised. Even though he didn't want to, he kept hearing her cries echoing in his ears. He walked back to the rental with steady steps, making a silent vow. As long as it soothes your broken heart, I will unconditionally follow everything you say. Everything you want, I will give to you. Everything you want to do, I will be right there with you. Wherever you want to go, even to the ends of the earth, I will hold this sign. Now listen carefully. Here is what you need to do. A moment later, at the flower shop entrance, a handsome guy appeared to attract customers, drawing in many girls. A little girl, curious about the scene, walked up to him. Hello. Hello there. Do you like flowers? Is everything here for sale? Fantaya asked gently. Everything. Is there one you like? The little girl immediately turned to her mother. Mommy, buy this big brother for me. The mother instantly turned beet red from embarrassment. I am so sorry. Whenever my daughter sees something she likes, she asks me to buy it. She doesn't mean any harm. The girl was confused, but he said everything is for sale. Are you trying to kill me with embarrassment? Fantai had chuckled. It's okay. He found her amusing and told her sincerely. I'm sorry, I've already been sold. To who? Well, a certain lady already bought me. The girl acted aloof. That's fine. I already bought a boy at preschool anyway. Jishuan said if I buy him, he has to marry me. Fantaiha laughed again. Then you better be nice to Jishuan. The little girl nodded. Watching this from a distance, Li Zai fell into deep thought. The reason he was assigned to Fantaiha was because of the chairman. He felt his son sometimes acted in very unpredictable ways. Li Zai's job was to report these actions. Though it was supposed to be occasional, everything Fantaiha did was completely bizarre. Li Zai was going crazy, not knowing what he should even report. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Haishou mumbled in her sleep, Mingche, don't leave. Suddenly, she snapped her eyes open. Looking around, she wondered when she had even gotten there. More importantly, she was worried about work. She pulled out her phone and was shocked to find it was already 4 in the afternoon. Haishou frantically called the flower shop owner. I'm so sorry for missing work without calling. Thinking about last night, her body couldn't stop shaking. I am truly sorry, something happened. To her surprise, the owner wasn't mad. Instead, she praised the replacement as being incredibly hardworking. Since there were so many customers, she just told her to focus on getting better and hung up. Haishou was completely dazed. After a long while, it finally clicked. Meanwhile, Fantaiha received a text from Haishou. His expression showed a bit of regret. After such a long time, he had hoped she would sleep a little longer. But since she was awake, he handed off the evening shift at the barbecue place to Li Zai. Li Zai felt ridiculous, having a high-level employee worth over 100,000 won an hour cover a 10,000 won shift. Aside from his current boss, he probably couldn't find anyone else like this. Watching Fantaiha rush off, he was genuinely confused. Does he really like that woman that much? Whether it was curiosity or professional duty, he just didn't get it. At the same time, Haishio took off her hospital gown and changed. Images of Jiang Mingche's affair kept flashing in her mind, making everything she did feel exhausting, even a simple task like tying her hair. Suddenly, a large, gentle hand lightly touched her forehead from behind. Let me see if my lady's fever has broken. Haishio blinked, her mind still a bit fuzzy. She nodded. Can't you rest a bit longer? You still seem a bit warm. It's okay. Staying in the hospital longer won't make me recover any faster. So are you going home now? Of course. Well, what about that man? Haishio froze. Fan Taiha continued to press. Should I still call him your husband? The question she had tried to block out was now being asked, leaving her completely at a loss. She didn't know what to call Jiang Mingche anymore. From now on, she was all alone and didn't know what to do. Strangely, she didn't feel like everything was truly over. Because it was a long-term love, she never imagined a day where they would part ways. In her life filled with misfortune, he was at least the one lucky person who gave her a reason to keep living. But she knew things between them could never be fixed. Even after seeing that scene with her own eyes, she still caught herself thinking that he might come back to her. Haishio clenched her fists, hating her own weakness. After all this, she was still having such foolish thoughts. It was ridiculous, like an absolute idiot. Even though she knew this, she still felt helpless. Her eyes welled up as she looked at Fan Taiha. You must think I'm pathetic, right? Fan Taiha comforted her sincerely. Not at all. It's not pathetic. If feelings were that easy to cut off, then I guess it wouldn't be love. As he spoke, his hand gently touched her face to fix a stray hair. Haishio looked at him with disbelief, but also felt deeply touched. What a strange boy. At my lowest moment, he said exactly what I needed to hear. But then she immediately snapped back and asked, what are you doing with your hand? He pointed. Your hair was sticking out here. Haishio was speechless. That's because I tied it. Without a mirror. Just then, Fan Taiha's phone started ringing. Seeing the name Du Shiji, he hung up without hesitation. Haishio was surprised. That's a girl's name, right? Aren't you answering? He acted like it was no big deal. It's not an important call. But a second later, it rang again. Haishio stared at the phone. The repeated calls reminded her of debt collectors. But lately, she'd seen this kind of persistence for a different reason. It wasn't because of anything specific, but simply because they wanted to hear someone's voice. Once, twice, 10 times. Waiting for the other person to pick up. The vibrations gave her a certain feeling. Haishio knew the person was either in an emergency or really liked him. Seeing her lost in thought, Fan Taiha hung up again. Don't worry about it. Let's talk about something else. You should have answered. I think she really likes you. Fan Taiha looked puzzled. How do you know that? Haishio looked away, avoiding his gaze. It's a girl, right? A man and woman can't just be acquaintances. Just like Jiang Mingche insisted, which turned out to be a total lie. To her surprise, Fan Taiha suddenly leaned in closer. While she looked at him with confusion, he asked, then what about us? We are also a man and woman. Yes, the kind who keep in touch every day and pick you up after work. Haishio was so flustered she didn't know where to look. Stop talking nonsense. You're just a kid. Well, you do have a young side to you too. Forget even the person I was with got sick of me and left. Who could ever like someone like me? I like you. Even though he was 10 years younger, Haishio acted like a girl with her first crush, scooting away in a panic. You. Seriously, stop messing around, or else I'm going to scold you. Fan Taiha stepped closer, his voice and eyes full of sincerity. I'm not joking. As his face leaned in closer, Haishio's heart raced like a frantic deer, leaving her frozen and unsure what to do. But just as they were drawing near, Haishio suddenly jumped up in a panic. Blushing, she avoided Fan Taiha and claimed his voice was so low that she didn't hear a word. Fan Taiha laughed. I'm curious to see how much longer you're going to play dumb. Shortly after, they left the hospital. Haishio wondered, how did you pay for my medical bills? I used my savings. I told you to just rest at home. Where would you get that kind of money? Anyway, I'll pay you back as soon as I can. Well, then I'll have to come collect the debt every single day. Haishio pouted, a bit annoyed. I'm not going to flake on you, okay? Oh, wait. Haishio suddenly remembered. I have my shift at the barbecue place. Seeing her panic, Fan Taiha smiled. Don't worry. I already found someone to cover for you. Meanwhile, at the barbecue restaurant, the professionally trained Li Ziyi was not only a hit with customers for his grilling, but even his cleaning was stylish and efficient. If any customers got too loud, he would politely step up and ask them to keep it down. On the other side, because she couldn't reach Fan Taiha, Shiji was in a terrible mood. Zhu Dongshu advised her, just give it up. You think he only has 1 or 2 women around him. Just because he's nice to you doesn't mean you're special. It's all an illusion, okay? Shiji was beyond pissed. Shut your mouth. You think he's like you? Grinning at every woman you see? You get all excited just because some random girl talks to you. She left him there. But those words actually managed to sting her. Meanwhile, even though they'd just parted ways, Fan Taiha couldn't help texting, I miss you. Didn't we just see each other? She replied with a crying emoji. Just hang in there until tomorrow. While he was grinning at his phone, his subordinate suddenly informed him that they just got word. The oldest son is returning to the country soon. The chairman wants the family to have a meeting. Hearing this, Fantaiha gave a cynical smirk. The chairman is something else. Since when did he care about brotherly bonds? Besides, if my big brother sees my face, he probably won't even be able to eat. Right, Zai? Li Zai gave an awkward smile. So what do you want to do? What else? Tell him. I'm dead. Isn't that what he wants most anyway? As a homecoming gift, I'll give him that sweet lie. Meanwhile, the homeless Jiang Mingche kept calling Yali. He was truly terrified now. If this kept up, word would spread at the office. And before he could deal with Luo Haishio, he had nowhere to go. Just as he felt he was going insane, something was suddenly thrown at him from behind. Jiang Mingche turned around in confusion and heard Yali's angry voice. You jerk, where do you think you are, showing your face here? Jiang Mingche tried to grab her hand, but was pushed away. Yali's voice trembled with rage. You filthy bastard, don't touch me with hands that touched another woman. Jiang Mingche swore, since I've been with you, I haven't touched her once. Yali pounded on his chest, sobbing as she questioned him. You think I'd ever believe that again? Jiang Mingche put on a lonely act, using his expert lies to deceive Yali again. He claimed he had nowhere to go, so he was forced to live with her. But ever since I've been with you, I haven't touched her, and the divorce is real. I knew if you found out, we'd be over, but I still brought you there, because I didn't want to hide anything from you. Don't worry. I won't come back. I only came this last time to apologize. I'm not a completely heartless guy. Also, you can't handle your liquor, so don't drink too much. Remember to drink some water after, and don't skip breakfast just because you overslept. Finally, I hope you find a man better than me. This speech successfully tricked Yali. Maybe Jiang Mingche was an incubus in a past life, making every girl he touched unable to let go. Watching his lonely figure leave, Yali kept telling herself it was all a lie. But in the end, she couldn't let go and ran to hug him tightly. Tears poured from her eyes as she sobbed and cursed him. Don't go. You complete scumbag. Feeling his shirt get soaked with her tears, Jiang Mingche gave a triumphant smirk. This woman is exactly as I expected. Meanwhile, Haishio returned to her cramped, cold rental. Looking at the mess, she wanted to ask her 20-year-old self if she ever thought the day would come where she'd have to clean up the traces left by Jiang Mingche and another woman in her own home. Haishio fell into deep self-doubt. Was it because she was too stupid that she so easily decided to stay together forever? She tried her best to scrub the stains off the floor, but realized in the end, she couldn't even bring herself to throw away his luggage. Haishio sat on the floor, helpless. After some time, the phone beside her kept vibrating. She thought it was another debt collector. She just wanted to be left alone. But the persistent vibrating gave her a certain feeling. Waiting this long for someone to pick up meant they were either in trouble or really liked her. As soon as she answered, Fantaiha's eager voice came through. Sorry, I just couldn't wait until tomorrow. At least let me hear your voice. Is it a good time to talk? Haishio didn't refuse and gave a soft MHM. Fantaiha chuckled and started chatting. Why, aren't you asleep yet? How could I sleep? Not having a nightmare would be a miracle. Facing all this again at home is even more disgusting than I thought. I'm so sorry. You're just a kid and you had to see those things. You're also sick, and I didn't even stop to check on you. It's okay. I think the shock scared the cold right out of me. As they talked, Haishio's frown slowly softened. Fantaiha asked how she was feeling. She instinctively wanted to say she was fine, but in that moment, she chose not to hide it. Great. Just thinking about it makes it hard to breathe. Traces of him are in every corner. Although the scars of this world had made Haishio stronger, she was still helpless against the trauma left by her loved one. Hearing this, Fantaiha gave her an idea. Why not try going off the rails for once? Like your husband, find a younger guy to play with. Here it comes. The Nunadancing romance between Haishio and Fantaiha has finally begun. Under Fantaiha's relentless pursuit, Haishio finally started to face the feelings in her heart. After returning home and seeing the traces of Jiang Mingche and the other woman, the resentment in her heart refused to fade. To help her clear her head, Fantaiha told her to try deviating from her path, asking if there was anything she always wanted to do but gave up on because of someone else. Haishio thought for a long time. Perhaps fueled by the impulse of being encouraged to rebel, she blindly bought a pack of cigarettes. This was the thing she wanted to try. Even though she wasn't a teenager anymore, doing this for the first time gave her a sudden sense of guilt. She was doing this only because she had always been curious why Jiang Mingche smoked these. When they first met, she thought he looked like a delinquent. But whenever she appeared, Jiang Mingche would immediately throw away the cigarette butt and tell her with a smile, I can't let my wife smell the smoke, after all. At those moments, Haishio's young heart would race with excitement. 13 years passed like that. But at some point, even in front of her, Jiang Mingche would easily exhale the choking smoke. In the bitter winters, watching the painful, hazy mist, Haishio used to wonder, is smoking this stuff actually comforting? So she decided to try it, hoping the sadness in her heart would dissipate like the smoke. But with no experience, Haishio fumbled around, only to realize awkwardly that she didn't know where the smoking area was. Looking at the expensive cigarettes, Haishio hesitated. It's a waste to throw them away. I'll just smoke one. Hiding in a corner, Haishio put the cigarette in her mouth and awkwardly tried to spark the lighter. But what felt strange was that no matter how she tried, it wouldn't light. Haishio thought The quality was bad. But the next second, the cigarette in her mouth was snatched from behind. Then she saw Fantaiha lean his head in, telling her with a half smile, "That's not how you light it." Haishio was startled. "How did you know I was here? I heard you say you were going to the convenience store. And isn't this the one closest to your house?" Fantaiha pulled out a lighter. "Want to try again? Let me light it for you." Hearing this, Haishio stared at him, feeling strange. She had never smelled smoke on him, so she couldn't help asking, "Do you smoke often? You're even carrying a lighter." Fantaiha chuckled and shook his head. "I don't smoke." "Then what is that in your hand?" "It belongs to a friend." "I don't believe you. Seriously, you told me to do something off the rails. But for an adult to do this, it's still a bit. You know, I heard men hate women who smoke." Seeing Haishio's dejected but cute expression, Fantaiha leaned in and told her, "That's not true. If you smoke, then I like the smoking you. If you don't smoke, then I like the non-smoking you. As long as it's Luo Haishio I'll like. As long as it's Luo Haishio I'll like everything about you. But if the reason you're smoking is because of that man, then I'll be a bit unhappy. Let me teach you." Fantaiha handed the cigarette back to Haishio and told her to try lighting it again. That confession just now made Haishio's heart race uncontrollably. She shyly turned away, afraid to look Fantaiha in the eye. Then, under Fantaiha's subtle guidance, Haishio slowly leaned in, closing her eyes with a mix of anticipation and nerves. But after waiting, she still couldn't light it until the lighter went out. Looking at the embarrassed Haishio, Fantaiha couldn't help but cover his face and laugh. Haishio got a bit angry, but with the cigarette in her mouth, she could only make muffled sounds. Left with no choice, Fantaiha demonstrated by putting the cigarette in his own mouth. "Watch closely. Spark the flame, and inhale like this to catch the fire. Not hard, right?" Seeing Fantaiha's skillful manner, Haishio felt her heart throb, but was also surprised. Blushing, she lowered her head and scolded him, "Don't ever smoke in the future." Fantaiha was confused. "Why? You look like a delinquent. Just don't smoke, okay? Anyway, I don't like smoking either." After saying that, Haishio decided to try one more time on her own. Recalling the steps, she successfully lit it, but was immediately choked by the smoke. Fantaiha advised her to stop. Haishio thought it was a waste. "I spent a lot of money on these. Compared to smoking, your health is more precious. Don't force yourself to take in something harmful just because of the cost. It's okay. Throw them away. Isn't there something else you can do? There are many better things than smoking." As he spoke, Fantaiha took Haishio's restless hand and, backing her into the corner, he watched as the pure-hearted Heisu got closer and closer. She couldn't help but think of his confession last night. That line, "I'm not joking, I like you," made her heart race even more. Heisu swallowed hard, cursing herself for even thinking about that stuff. Then, she faked being calm and broke free from Fantaiha's grip. "Do you think I'm still some 19-year-old girl who'd fall for a mysterious kid like you?" Fantaiha kept teasing her. "Well, if you were 19, that'd be great. Then you'd definitely fall for me." Heisu looked down, blushing. "Why don't you just go date a 19-year-old girl then?" "That won't work, because I'm an adult." Then go see someone who's 20. "But I just happen to like older women like you." Seriously, Heisu was at a loss for words. Her face beat red as she stammered. But just then, a phone call broke the strange tension between them. Heisu breathed heavily, trying to calm her racing heart. Seeing Du Shiji's name, she couldn't help but wonder. He calls every day, so they must be pretty close, right? However, Fantaiha just turned off the phone. Heisu looked confused. "What are you doing? Did you hang up?" "By accident again." Fantaiha explained while leaning in closer. "I hung up on purpose. Because I'm with the person I like, and I don't want to be disturbed." With that, he pinned Heisu against the wall, leaving her nowhere to run. Having dealt with betrayal before, Heisu felt very uneasy. "What's there to like about an older woman like me? I've been married, had a husband, and almost had a kid." Hearing this, Fantaiha looked sincere. "It's okay. People always call me a playboy. So what do you think of me? You definitely look like you have a messy private life." Fantaiha rubbed his chin and thought for a few seconds. "That's a bit unfair. Because I'm actually more innocent than you'd think. Of course, if you like the bad boy type, then I'll play the part until I'm worn out just to find you." Meanwhile, on the other side, thanks to Jiang Mingche's smooth talking, Yuli forgave his previous lies. She just asked that he never see that woman again and just live with her from now on. Lying in a comfortable bed, Jiang Mingche couldn't help but feel that landing an innocent young girl like her was basically a piece of cake. But young, naive girls are only good for a temporary fling. Although he'd thought about moving on instantly, he didn't want to do that. He was sure that only when he was gone would Luo Heisu realize how precious he was. Though she'd be furious at first because of the betrayal, he knew the Luo Heisu he knew could never truly abandon him. Even if she got hurt, over and over, if it was him she was facing, she'd eventually embrace him again, along with all that pain. This wasn't just Jiang Mingche being cocky or full of himself. It was because Luo Heisu simply couldn't leave him. Meanwhile, unable to get through to Fantaiha, Shiji leaned against a wall, frustrated. Then, Zhu Dongsu, who had a crush on Shiji, appeared again. Using some liquid courage, he told Shiji to stop losing her dignity by chasing after Fantaiha. "He's just a few years older. He's really no different from me. The only reason he's nice to you is because your younger brother is disabled. The guy just pities you because you're struggling so hard for your brother. He's clearly the loser here, who got sick and had to stay back in school for years. Why do you all like a loser like him?" Hearing this, Shiji angrily slapped him. "You jerk. Don't you dare talk to me like that." Zhu Dongsu instinctively raised his arm to hit her back, but then he suddenly calmed down. Whatever, hitting Someone like you is pointless anyway. If I ever care about you again, I'm not a human, I'm a dog. But right after he said that, Fan Tai's voice came from behind them. Don't smoke on the street. It looks trashy. Hey, there's no ashtray here. While speaking, Fan Tai pressed the cigarette butt onto Zhu Dongsu's hand. The next second, Zhu Dongsu let out a scream. Seeing Fan Tai about to leave, Shiji immediately blocked him and demanded an answer. Do you have another woman? Fan Tai turned his back and nodded. Yeah, I do. She's someone I really, really like. So, Shiji, I hope you don't contact me anymore. Otherwise, she might get the wrong idea. After saying that, he walked quickly out of the dark alley. Suddenly, a notification sound made him stop. Fan Tai pulled out his phone and saw a message from Heisu. His serious expression immediately turned into a huge grin. You said you don't smoke? I believe. Don't smoke in the future. I won't smoke for the rest of my life. It's a promise. Like an excited puppy, he nodded frantically. It turned out that after Fan Tai's repeated confessions, Heisu's heart was starting to waver. But the next day at the flower shop, Huajin asked her curiously, Sis, what's really going on between you and Rose? He filled in for you when you were sick, and lately he's been picking you up after work every day. Normal acquaintances don't go that far. At this point, Huajin was wide-eyed. Could it be that he actually likes you? Is he flirting with a married woman because he doesn't know you have a husband? Hearing this, Heisu felt both nervous and hopeful. Does he really like me? Seeing that Heisu didn't argue back like usual, Huajin's heart instantly went, oh boy, sis, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way he could truly like you. All that stuff I said about dating a younger guy, even if you're still pretty for your age, I was just joking. To be honest, why would a guy like Rose ignore all the girls his age to pester you? Unless there's some huge fate between you two, or maybe like in a drama where you saved his life once. Otherwise, how could he possibly like you? Besides, times have changed. Love at first sight only happens between people of the same social class. So, a man like Rose wouldn't just like an older woman for no reason. These words made Heisu, who had a bit of hope, feel instantly ashamed. Caught between Fan Tai's sincere and passionate pursuit and her own deep feelings of unworthiness, Heisu felt lost. But then, her colleague at the shop suddenly nudged her. Look over there. You know that guy, right? He looks like a puppy waiting for its owner. Go on and go see him. Seeing Fan Tai, Heisu felt a little flutter of joy, but she was still a bit shy. How can I do that? I'm at work. It's fine. Just go for a bit. It's okay. With her co-workers' encouragement, Heisu finally rushed. Outside. What are you doing here? Fan Tai smiled. Because I missed you, so I stopped by while I was passing through. His smile cured Heisu's gloomy mood, and she smiled back. Are you working part-time? Are you hungry? Although Fan Tai said he had dinner earlier, Heisu figured a guy his age would get hungry fast. So she told him to wait a second, turned around, and grabbed a handful of snacks from the counter. Here, take these. Fan Tai asked with a chuckle. Are these candies? But I'm wearing gloves right now. Heisu felt a bit regretful. Fine, fine. Don't stall. I'll just feed you. Right then, she suddenly remembered what Huajin said that falling in love only happens when people are in the same social class. Because he's naturally kind and gentle. A kid like him probably feels more curiosity toward me than actual romantic interest. Maybe it's even just pity for me. After all, he saw with his own eyes how miserable I was when I was abandoned. Sensing Heisu was overthinking again, Fan Tai bit the candy she held, along with her finger. With an aggressive look in his eyes, he stared straight at her until her fingertip brushed his warm lips. Heisu was stunned by this. Back home that night, Heisu had nightmares again. The images of Jiang Mingxie with other women made her soak her pillow with tears every night. But suddenly, Heisu felt a large hand gently stroking her face. She opened her eyes in surprise, thinking it was Jiang Mingxie coming back to her. But the next second, the man behind her covered her eyes. Then, there was a rustling sound from behind. Heisu's body tensed up in fear. Feeling someone unusually close, Heisu immediately tried to stop him. But a second later, seeing the familiar tattoo on the man's arm, Heisu blushed instantly. She turned around in disbelief, only to see Fan Tai's familiar face. In a flash, Heisu woke up from her dream, her face red as she panted heavily. Looking around and finding no one there, Heisu felt incredibly ashamed. Her face burning, she cursed herself. Luo Heisu, you must be crazy. He's just a kid. Even if he did those things, how could you have such a crazy dream? No, it's his fault too. Doing those things like it's nothing. Are kids these days always this reckless? Just telling an older woman they like her for no reason. Being so bold in front of an adult. Blushing and frustrated, she buried her head in her arms. She knew she shouldn't blame an immature kid. Maybe it's because it's been too long. Despite making these lame excuses, Heisu still felt guilty. She even felt that dreaming of the nightmare where Jiang Mingxie left was better. However, that was just an excuse to comfort herself. There's no worse night than waking up soaking wet and crying. Heisu knew that all too well. But facing Fan Tai, who didn't even give her time to be sad and made it impossible if he was a player or just pure-hearted, Heisu's mind was a mess day and night. The next day after work, looking at that familiar tall figure outside, her co-worker asked in confusion, Heisu. There are a lot of adult entertainment venues around here, and walking alone is a bit much. His colleague nodded, thinking Heisu was just afraid of the dark. However, Jesus acted tough, claiming that it was actually the other guy who was terrified of walking at night, which is why he came looking for protection every day. As soon as they stepped out, with a beaming smile, "Are you off work? I've been waiting for you." Saying that, he suddenly reached his hand out toward Jesus. Confused, Jesus asked what he was doing. Taeho chuckled, "Actually, last night, I had a very, very scary nightmare. So, how about we walk while holding hands?" For some reason, looking at Taeho's long, slender fingers, Jesus instantly recalled the dream he had last night. Snapping back to reality, he felt his hair stand and immediately jumped back several steps before quickly scurrying away. With his back turned, he warned Taeho, "Don't get too close. Stay away from me." Taeho whined in confusion. "Why? I just want to walk right by your side. Won't you let me stay close?" "No way. Absolutely not. Go over there. But I had a nightmare last night." "Hey, that's why I'm walking you home. But I'm still a little scared of the dark." "Shut up." Jesus' face as he tried to hide his embarrassment. However, seeing Jesus' crimson ears, the previously sulky Taeho seemed to realize something. "In that case, I'll just follow behind you. Please, hold my hand." Before Jesus could respond, Taeho gently hooked one of his fingers. Jesus wanted to refuse, but Taeho continued to plead. "Not even this?" Feeling helpless, Jesus gave in. "Fine. Just come here. Stay by my side and hold my hand." Taeho nodded happily. "So, are you still scared?" "I'm not scared. I'm a grown man, whining over a nightmare at your age." Taeho tried to change the subject. "Doesn't it feel a bit colder than usual today?" But Jesus immediately called him out. "You're only complaining to change the subject because you're embarrassed, right? Was I that obvious?" Faced with the shameless Taeho, Jesus didn't know how to react and could only look away. Seeing his blushing, guilty expression, Taeho couldn't help but smirk. How strange. No, Jesus is actually blushing. Meanwhile, Taeho's father, the chairman, received news that his eldest son, Taesher, had arrived in Korea. As he stepped off the plane, Taesher asked his subordinates, "Is my dear little brother doing well?" Just as they were about to report, he cut them off immediately. "Never mind. I have zero interest in any news about that guy unless it's an obituary." But right as he said that, his subordinate told him, "I heard he's already dead." Taesher was stunned. "Who said that? Did that bastard tell you to say that? Did he become more obedient while we were apart?" Taeho couldn't be dead. He's the type who would survive even if he held his own funeral. More importantly, I didn't want to send him to his death so simply. I'm sure many of you have seen this image recently. Jesus and Taeho standing on the mountain peak, looking over the city nightscape. This is not only an iconic scene from The Withered Flower, but also my favorite image. Facing the beautiful night view he had never noticed before, Jesus shouted out his past misfortunes. At this moment, the heavy clouds have finally cleared. Jesus has completely broken free from the shackles that bound him for 13 years, choosing to embrace a new life. It turns out, after his older brother Fan Tai 11 returned home, Fan Tai had a nightmare. In the dream, he was abandoned in a creepy room, his pale face covered in blood, and his young eyes were full of coldness. But then, the sound of a door creaking open came from inside the room. Fan Tai, who always lacked a sense of security, woke up instantly. On the other, Lee Zai tiptoed in. Fan Tai doesn't smoke at all, yet there was a cheap lighter on the table along with an empty box of Band-Aids. Although these were just ordinary things, they felt totally out of place to him. However, right then, he seemed to sense something and turned around, meeting Fan Tai's eerie and terrifying gaze. "So glad to see you at home," Lee Zai said awkwardly. "I thought you were sleeping." "How did you know I was here?" "I thought I was being quiet." Fan Tai turned away and scratched his hair. "Why are you looking for me?" "I heard the eldest young master just landed. I came to let you know. Since I saw you were sleeping, I was debating whether to wake you up." Fan Tai showed no emotion. "Is that so? No wonder even my nightmares are so disgusting. But Zai, is this so urgent that you had to break into my house to tell me?" With his little scheme exposed, Lee Zai could only explain himself. "Since you seem to care so much about his return, I thought you'd want to hear it right away. Was my judgment wrong?" "No, you're right. That's why I gave you the passcode." Fan Tai patted Lee Zai's shoulder. "Thanks. I'll be counting on you." Meanwhile, on the other side, Jesus woke up a bit later than usual. Since Jiang Mingche was gone, there was no need to work so hard on breakfast. These days, Jesus' expenses had decreased. Even though there was a mountain of debt to pay back, that hand that always asked for pocket money was gone. The pain left by betrayal isn't a constant ache. It feels like everything is fine for now, and she can just smile it off. But then in an instant, it rips her heart open again, making her eyes burn with pain. 13 years together meant that everything Jesus encountered in life reminded her of moments with him. In Luo Jesus' world, that man took up more space than she did herself. Jesus didn't know if she could ever forget him. She also wondered if the hurt Jiang Mingche caused would last until the day she died. Just then, Jesus noticed a teddy bear in a shop window and remembered last night when Fan Tai insisted on holding her hand because of his nightmare. Maybe because her expenses had gone down lately. Jesus, who wouldn't normally waste a cent, decided to buy the teddy bear for the big guy who said nightmares were scary. Actually, Jesus had heard from a coworker that if you sew a heart onto a toy that a child sleeps with, then the toy will have a soul. Whenever the child. Great idea. Seeing Jesus' beaming smile, Fan Tai asked with a goofy grin, "What are you thinking about? You're smiling so much." "Oh, nothing. Are you busy today?" Jesus hesitated. "For a moment. My work is all done for the day." Although she had to go home and sew the teddy bear, For some reason, she didn't want to say no. Since she had more time than before, she told Fan Tai she wasn't busy. Then give me some of your time. Oh, okay. But what are you doing? Before Haesu could finish, Fan Tai put a helmet on her head. Then, under her confused gaze, Fan Tai picked her up and slung her over his shoulder. Haesu was so startled. She cried out, repeatedly hitting Fan Tai on his back. A little later, a motorcycle came to a stop. Fan Tai took off Haesu's helmet and told her, "This is it. This is where I wanted to bring you. When I have a lot on my mind, I usually come here alone. What do you think?" Looking at the night view before her, Haesu was stunned. Although the area where Haesu lived was on high ground, meaning the entire Seoul night view could be seen when night fell. Every time she stepped onto the steep stairs, lights would flicker in the narrow corners, even though she was in a place where she could see the whole view just by turning around. Fan Tai knew that after a hard day's work, a tired Luo Haesu never noticed the lights gathered behind her. Looking at the brightly lit Seoul, Haesu had mixed feelings, and her shock wouldn't fade. This was the first time she realized the city she lived in was so beautiful. Fan Tai asked her, "Is there anything you want to say?" Haesu didn't understand what he meant. "There's no one around, so you can shout as loud as you want. Scream until you feel better, and then just throw him away, whoever he is." Hearing this, Haesu took a deep breath and then shouted at the city, "Jiang Mingche, you jerk. You hopeless piece of crap. Yeah, you're really something. Just live your life alone. I'm not 20 anymore. I really, really hate you now. So if you ever regret it and want my forgiveness, keep dreaming. Even if you come back, I will absolutely, positively never take you back." After letting all her frustration out, Haesu was panting for fresh air. Fan Tai gently patted her back. "Do you feel better?" "Yeah. Did you say everything you wanted to say?" Haesu thought for a few seconds. "Also, thank you." "Thank you, Fan Tai. How did you know I was so choked up inside? Even I didn't realize it. How do you always do this?" Hearing her thanks, Fan Tai froze for a few seconds, then took off his coat and draped it over Haesu's thin frame. "Do you know what goes through my mind when I hear stuff like that? From the person I like?" Haesu was confused. What kind of thoughts? Right after he said that, Fan Tai suddenly picked her up. So she was half a head taller than him. Fan Tai said with a smirk, "Dirty thoughts, obviously." Haesu's face turned red instantly. What do you mean by that?" "I can tell you if you don't mind. I can tell you everything. In detail." "No. Don't you dare say it." "Absolutely not." Fan Tai put her on the motorcycle and kept teasing her. "You're blushing." "No, I'm not. It's just because it's cold. Let's just go home." Just as the motorcycle was about to start, the shy Haesu only pinched a tiny corner of his jacket. Then she heard Fan Tai's voice. "Since it's dangerous, you can hold on much tighter than that." Hearing this, Haesu finally felt at ease and wrapped her arms around him. As the motorcycle sped down the empty road, Haesu felt a strange sensation. Looking at Fan Tai's broad back, grown from a childhood of misfortune, and those shoulders that had inevitably been scarred by the world, she had intended to offer an adult-like embrace. But in the end, she was the one leaning on him. Yet, in this moment, Haesu felt an unprecedented sense of peace. Meanwhile, back on the other side, after Fan Tai left, Li Zai entered his room again. Although Chairman Fan Taiju was the kind of man who kept no secrets, it was quite interesting to think that this chairman, who stood above 10,000 people, was ultimately just a father who wanted to control his son. Originally, he just wanted to make a fortune by reporting on the daily life of this wealthy young master, but the reality left him feeling helpless. Fan Tai's behavior was so bizarre, it reached a level of abnormality that was almost perverse. Even his actions were just as strange. Li Zai had a premonition. If he were to fully disclose all of the master's eccentricities here, he felt like he would end up without a place to be buried. Caught between the father and son, Li Zai felt all my little tricks have been seen through. Damn it. Who should I listen to? Now every step had to be taken with caution, judging from the items left untouched. He seemingly hadn't noticed that I'm still under orders to watch him. What should I do? I'd better go back and think it over. The scene shifts to Haesu's house. Currently, she is sewing a heart onto the teddy bear, just as her own wounded heart was being mended piece by Fan Tai. Every stitch represented the care between them. Upon completion, Haesu felt a strange sense of gratification. Although it was just a little needlework, it turned out quite cute. However, if she took it to her part-time job, it might get dirty. So Haesu decided that when they went home together after her shift tomorrow, she would give the gift to Fan Tai. Tai should like it. Right? Thinking of this, Haesu couldn't help but smile in anticipation. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jiang Mingche was feeling very confused. It had been several days since he left home. Why hadn't Luo Haesu contacted him yet? To be honest, I thought she'd come looking for me quickly. Even if she hasn't heard anything, she couldn't possibly not worry about me suddenly running away. Although Yali said she'd die before letting me go home, I can't just keep cycling through newly bought clothes forever. He simply lacked a sense of thrift. If it were Luo Haesu, she would have brought those old clothes back to life and kept wearing them. But perhaps because Yali is still young, she spends money recklessly. Rare memories of Haesu's virtues made Jiang Mingche wonder how she was doing. So he planned to go home tomorrow to check and pick up some things he needed. Meanwhile, due to family reasons, Fan Tai couldn't accompany Haesu home today. Seeing this message, Haesu felt a bit panicked, like a fool. Perhaps because she had grown used to seeing him every day, she naturally assumed they would meet today too. Realizing Fan Tai has his own life, Haesu decided to give him the teddy bear next time. However, something might have happened. Yet she never imagined that the one in trouble would be herself. Since Jiang Mingche left home after betraying Heisu, he hadn't received a single message from her, so he decided to go back and see. Although he had anticipated the outcome, seeing the little dilapidated house exactly as it was, Jiang Mingche finally felt relieved. During the time he was gone, this was still Luo Heisu's natural place. The teddy bear on the table that Heisu prepared for Fan Tai, Jiang Mingche looked confused. I've never seen Luo Heisu like dolls or things like that before, but immediately he couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seems she's very lonely without her husband by her side, so she should have treated me better when I was here. Then he turned and walked toward the bedroom, intending to take the dry, soft underwear Heisu had washed for him. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fan Tai brought Li Zai back to the family. Finally, waiting for his damn younger brother, Fan Tai 11 couldn't help but show a playful look. Then he threw down the expensive glass wine cup in his hand. With a crash, the wine cup shattered at Fan Tai's feet. Fan Tai, he looked up and heard that nauseating voice. Long time no see, brother. Fan Tai 11 clicked his tongue and shook his head while making a TSK sound. You don't even know to say hello when you see your big brother? Your neck is still so stiff. Not cute at all. Seeing that Fan Tai, he was already half a head taller than him. Fan Tai 11 felt even more displeased. Did you grow taller during the time we didn't meet? But you'd better keep your knees low before I slash your ankles until your eyes are level with mine. Fan Tai countered mockingly. Shouldn't big brother just grow a bit taller instead? TSK. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm 27. How could I still grow taller? At this, Fan Tai's gaze became even sharper. Exactly. Why? Didn't you grow taller? After suffering such pain, I heard big brother used to cry every day. Crying out that your legs hurt, even to the point where it made you afraid. So, do you still cry every night lately? With his pathetic and painful past suddenly brought up, the rage in Fan Tai's heart could no longer be contained as he grabbed Fan Tai's arm with a dark expression and warned, I think you haven't been beaten lately, and your skin is getting itchy, right? Go ahead and laugh now. Laugh all you want. One day I will definitely kill you, just like your mother. These words also pierced Fan Tai's weak spot. But just then, a subordinate reminded them, the chairman has arrived. Young masters, let's leave it at that. Hearing this, Fan Tai shoved Li Zai away and barked, get your hands off me. Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? How dare you? Touch it. Before leaving, he didn't forget to drop a threat. I'll remember your face. Watch your back. When walking at night, Fan Tai gloatingly patted Li Zai on the shoulder. You're finished, Zai. My big brother holds a serious grudge. Then, will you protect me? I hired you to protect me. Why should I be protecting you instead? Then I'll just have to look out for myself from now on. Haha, no way. A few minutes later, the father and two sons sat together. In front of their father, the two brothers acted very obediently. But while Fan Taishi was eating in silence, he suddenly heard his father ask, Taishi, who is Melissa? Fan Taishi was instantly startled. I really don't understand. Chairman, how you found out the name of that crazy woman's child on the other side of the world. Are you still secretly investigating news of your children abroad? However, looking at the chairman's indisputably serious expression, Fan Taishi, who had lived under his shadow since childhood, didn't dare hide it anymore. I don't know who is spreading rumors, but that child is definitely not mine. If you don't believe me, you can bring them back for a test. But seeing the chairman's face remained unchanged, Fan Taishi subconsciously gulped and immediately apologized. I'm sorry. This won't happen again. While in Korea, I will conduct myself with discretion. Taiha, how about you? Yes, Chairman. I'm asking if you have any problems. Hearing this, the image of embracing Haishio last night suddenly flashed in Fan Tai's mind. Even so, he replied with a straight face, of course not. No problems at all. At the same time, seeing that familiar pair of men's shoes at the door, Haishio, who had just returned from work, was instantly livid. She rushed into the room. Jiang Mingche, it's you, right? Get out here right now. You scumbag, do you know where this is? How dare you come back? Seeing Haishio's furious face, Jiang Mingche looked relaxed. Honestly, watch your tone. Is this somewhere I'm not allowed to be? This is our home. Hearing this made Haishio even angrier. This is my home alone, not ours. Get out now. Hooking up with a young girl and doing those things to her. Do you have no conscience? Jiang Mingche grabbed Haishio's wrist, showing no remorse. What young girl? Yali is 25. She knows what she's doing. How can you even say that? As an elder, if you had any self-awareness, you should have stepped aside. Jiang Mingche was very dismissive. What elder crap? Just be honest, Luo Haishio. Are you jealous? After the rose-colored glasses were gone, Haishio suddenly realized how shameless this man was. But seeing Haishio's shocked gaze, Jiang Mingche was very smug. Is it because I'm with a woman 8 years younger than you? Is that why your heart aches? Or do you just miss me? While speaking, Jiang Mingche suddenly grabbed the back of Haishio's leg. His actions reached a new low for Haishio. Feeling the physical and psychological humiliation, Haishio completely snapped, throwing various water cups at Jiang Mingche's head. Get out. Get out right now. Jiang Mingche seemed to enjoy tormenting Haishio. Before leaving, he didn't forget to tease, see you next time. Haishio warned him, if this, Jiang Mingche didn't care at all. She couldn't even bear to throw away one of his things. Yet she acts all indifferent. Looking at the angry, sobbing Luo Haishio, Jiang Mingche felt very pleased. Even breathing felt much smoother. Compared to the boring, puppet-like Luo Haishio from before, she now seemed like a living, breathing person. However, by now, Haishio was shaking with rage, her heart aching. But, just as she helplessly wanted to sink down and cry, someone flashed into her mind. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fan Taiha, who had just finished a banquet, received a call from Haishio. Initially, he was very pleasantly surprised, but, hearing Haishio's shaky and depressed voice, He immediately guessed what had happened. Clearly, he should have just killed that scumbag directly. But after thinking about it, he gave up on that idea for now. He couldn't let him off that easily. He wanted the scumbags in to be even more miserable. At the same time, as soon as the banquet ended, Taishi ran to the bathroom to vomit. The suffocating atmosphere at the dining table made him unable to tell if he was eating or being force-fed. Along with the chairman's indisputable gaze and Fan Taiha's intentional or unintentional mockery tonight, Fan Taishi was frustrated to the extreme. He knew the other party did this on purpose to show the chairman that Fan Taiha looked more like a chairman than he did. It was as if the whole family was in the palm of his hand. Fan Taishi's eyes were full of resentment. You filthy bastard. How could I possibly lose to you? Meanwhile, on the other side, Haishio arrived at the meeting point to wait. While she was silently lost in thought, Fan Taiha suddenly appeared behind her. Sorry, I wanted to get here as fast as I could. Have you been waiting long? Seeing Fan Taiha dressed more maturely than usual, Haishio was a bit surprised. He said he had something to do. It seems it was indeed something very important. Did you go to an interview somewhere? After snapping out of it, her tone was a bit apologetic. I'm sorry to call you over when you're so busy. Fan Taiha played with the ends of Haishio's hair, his tone very gentle. Not at all. Actually, I'm glad you reached out to me first. Although Haishio's dejected voice on the phone had made him angry, besides the heartache, it also brought a slight sense of joy. Haishio's voice was a bit low. You know, I don't have anyone special that I know. No friends, no family, and now I don't even have a husband. Looking at the bright-faced Fan Taiha, Haishio requested, so for today, please be my friend. Even though hanging out with an older woman might not mean much to you, Fan Taiha asked with a puzzled look. Just by saying so, Haishio felt embarrassed. Yeah, is there anything you want? Hearing this, Fan Taiha immediately looked like he wanted praise and a pat on the head. But Haishio held her chin in thought for a moment, then started rummaging through her pockets. Fan Taiha looked a bit confused, but the next second, Haishio suddenly handed him something. Here, take this. This is all I have on me right now. Sorry for taking up your time. Take this and go buy some snacks later. Looking at the extra 2001 in his hand, Fan Taiha didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Watching Haishio take the first step, he teased. Why didn't you wait for me to walk with you? Are you just ditching me after buying me off? What are you talking about? I wasn't. Why do you talk like that? If people heard you, they'd get the wrong idea. I don't care. Either way, you've already bought me, so you can't abandon me now. A little while later, the two walked into a barbecue stall. Seeing how they looked, the owner was stunned. Oh my, I thought some celebrities just walked in. Your faces are so dazzling. You definitely don't look like siblings. Could you be a couple? Hearing this, Haishio was stunned, but then she remembered Huajin's words and frantically denied it. No, we're just acquaintances. Seeing how flustered Haishio was, Fan Taiha gently patted her stiff body, leaned down, and played along. That's right. We aren't a couple yet. It's just a one-sided crush on my part, so I'm pursuing her. Right, sis? Haishio's face turned bright red as she quickly denied it. No, it's not like that. Seeing the girl acting shy in the man's arms, frozen, the owner's display of affection was quite a lot to take in. Haishio rarely ate out, so she felt a bit out of place sitting at the table. Looking at the soju on the table, she couldn't help but remember how, whenever life got hard, instead of having side dishes, Jiang Mingche would just drink it straight. Haishio was curious about how it actually tasted. Seeing this, Fan Taiha immediately took the bottle, poured a glass for Haishio. Last time it was cigarettes, today it's alcohol. Back then, you looked like you were about to cry, but today you just seem furious. Haishio argued back. Didn't you say there were plenty of other good things? So, I'm trying them out. The good things I mentioned aren't this. Then what are they? Innocent Haishio didn't think much of it, but Fan Taiha had a playful look on his face. If you keep asking me, I feel like I'll really want to answer you. Before she knew it, he had leaned in toward her. Looking at the youthful and radiant Fan Taiha, Haishio felt a bit dazed. Looking at you reminds me of Jiang Mingche back then. Fan Taiha was a bit displeased. Are you insulting me? Hearing this, Haishio couldn't help but laugh. Of course, nowadays that sounds like an insult, but at least back then, to us, there was a side that shone brightly. We never doubted the sincerity. But sincerity changes in an instant, like tears on a withered flower. At first, I didn't understand why the female lead couldn't let go of the second male lead. Even after the divorce, she worked several jobs just to pay off the debt and remarry him. It wasn't until the flashback that I realized they were once each other's salvation. Because of her dysfunctional family, Haishio was insecure and sensitive during her school days. But one day at school, a boy suddenly walked up to her. When Haishio asked who he was, the boy seemed surprised, then told her with a bright smile, "My name is Jiang Mingche. I live just up the way. You might not know me, but I definitely know you. Luo Haishio, right?" After saying that, he handed her some bread. "Here, I saved this specifically for you." Seeing Haishio hesitate, Jiang Mingche chuckled. "It's not poisoned, so don't throw it away while I'm off." Watching the boy walk away, Haishio's mind was full of questions. In fact, she didn't know who Jiang Mingche was. She was just too shy and asked on purpose. This boy living alone at the top of the slum hill had no parents since he was young. Even the grandmother he lived with had passed away. Every night, he'd often hang out and smoke with the troublemakers. It seemed like everyone in the village, young and old, knew who that boy was. But even though he looked like a delinquent, he would help the village grandmas pull their carts every day. He was approachable, yet very bold, well-liked by the elders, and also the most handsome boy around. From that day on, Jiang Mingche would talk to Haishio every morning and constantly give her things. After a month of this, Jiang Mingche couldn't help himself and asked, "Hi, Xiao, aren't you curious about me at all?" "I was waiting for you to ask. As he spoke, he pulled out his phone, wanting Haishio to give him her number. Seeing Haishio's very hesitant expression, Jiang Ming-che didn't feel awkward at all. If you don't want to, you can turn me down. At worst, I'll just go home and cry my eyes out. Hearing this, Haishio explained to him, I'm sorry, it's not that I don't want to give it to you, but I don't have a phone. Jiang Ming-che was a bit shocked. No, why are you apologizing? Not having a phone isn't a crime. Later, to be able to contact Haishio, Jiang Ming-che decided to get her. But being poor, he didn't have much in savings. So he went to a construction site to work hard and earn money, finally delivering on his month-old promise to Haishio. At that time, Haishio didn't understand. You worked hard for a month just to buy this. Why give it to me? Jiang Ming-che didn't think much of it. Why else? I'm giving it to you so you can text me to contact me, okay? Under Jiang Ming-che's careful guidance, added a boy named Ming-che never used a phone. Returning home at night, the endless arguing of her parents and the sound of breaking glass made Haishio curl into a ball, covering her ears in pain. That night, the message from Jiang Ming-che became the only light in her heart. Because Haishio's school started 30 minutes later than his, Jiang Ming-che was late every day just to see her, and as a result, he was beaten by the dean every day. Hearing Jiang Ming-che already had a girlfriend, his classmates told him to be careful. Because the big sister from another really liked him. At first, Jiang Ming-che didn't take it to heart. After a final exam, Haishio was sulking because her grades weren't great. To tease her, Jiang Ming-che snatched her test paper and mocked the rain of red marks on it. Haishio snapped back, what about you? You clearly didn't do well either, right? Hearing this, Jiang Ming-che proudly handed over his paper. So, is your big brother pretty cool? Seeing a whole page of check marks, Haishio was stunned. Only then did she finally understand why. The elders nearby felt bad for his parents. They had such a bright child, but couldn't be there to see him grow up. Since I bought him hanging out with you can only use again, as usual. Haishio couldn't help but feel bad for him. But noticing her gaze, Jiang Ming-che suddenly called her wife in front of his friends. At the same time, he egged his friends on to join in. Hearing the shouts of hello, sister-in-law, the naturally introverted Haishio blushed deeply. Even though they weren't in a relationship yet, the news quickly spread around. As a result, when she was going home after school the next day, Haishio was cornered by another delinquent student who liked Jiang Ming-che. This news happened to be seen by Jiang Ming-che's friend. Meanwhile, Haishio was cornered and bullied by them in the restroom. A group of them began insulting her choice of clothes, questioning her relationship with Jiang Ming-che. Hearing Haishio say they had no relationship at all, the lead girl didn't believe her and threatened Haishio to strip off all her clothes, or she would slash her face. You go around seducing men with this face, don't you? Right at that moment, having heard the news, Jiang Ming-che arrived just in time. He kicked open the restroom door and violently shoved the girl, holding the knife aside. Seeing Haishio huddled in the corner of the stall, innocent and helpless, her clothes torn to shreds, and her body covered in footprints from being stepped on, a surge of rage rose within Jiang Ming-che. He draped his jacket over Haishio, intending to take her home. Seeing that she had lost face in front of her friends, the lead girl warned him, leave Haishio here, or I'll stab her to death. Hearing this, Jiang Ming-che grabbed the girl's hand, pressed the knife against his own neck, and snarled at her to give it a shot if she had the guts. And just like that, Jiang Ming-che took Haishio's hand and walked her home. Even though she was covered in bruises herself, Haishio's biggest worry was for Jiang Ming-che, because she had heard that the girl had many brothers in gangs. However, Jiang Ming-che comforted her, it's fine. If a fight really breaks out, I can handle myself. But the reality was that he got jumped and beaten for 2 whole hours. Seeing Jiang Ming-che covered in bruises, yet still stubbornly insisting it didn't hurt, Haishio was suddenly overwhelmed by anger, guilt, and gratitude. A mix of countless emotions swirled in her heart. Seeing Haishio silently clench her fists, as tears fell like rain, Jiang Ming-che, who was just bragging about taking on several guys at once, was stunned. Then, feeling completely clueless, he promised Haishio that he would definitely not get beaten up again. Please don't cry. You can hit me instead. Why? Why are you being so good to me? Just as he raised Haishio's arm above her head, he heard her question, why are you being so good to me? Jiang Ming-che fell silent, facing the girl he liked. Even someone as thick-skinned as him had the tips of his ears turn red just from those words. Seeing the boy's trembling hands, Haishio knew that she had already fallen for him. Under the witness of the sunset, Haishio took the lead and kissed Jiang Ming-che. Even if she was stuck in a swamp of misfortune, having him there made her feel that even burning out in this chaotic youth would be worth it. However, 13 years later, after the fire had burned out, what remained was a Jiang Ming-che who vanished like smoke and a Luo Haishio who turned to ash. Reflecting on her lucky yet unlucky 13 years, Haishio drank glass after glass of soju, which tasted as bitter as her life. Noticing Fan Taiha's resentful gaze, Haishio found it strange. Why are you looking at me like that? It's not like it's your first time seeing someone drink. Fan Taiha sighed, I'm just so jealous. Because while you're drinking in front of me, you're thinking about another man. At the same time, he asked himself, how can I compete with a memory that I can't erase from your heart? Perhaps it was the liquid courage, but Haishio began to ask questions buried deep in her heart. You're very flirtatious and you have the looks of a playboy. With a face like that and saying things like that, girls would easily fall for you, right? Fan Taiha chuckled, but you didn't fall for it. Stop joking. I know everything, but you seem to know nothing. Sigh. Haishio couldn't win the argument, so she scolded, stop talking back to your elders. I'm an adult. Now too. How funny. Be honest now. Nini, how old are you? Asking the question that had puzzled her for a long time, Haishio felt both shy and a little expectant. Fan Taiha smiled, leaned his head close to her ear, and whispered, 23. Hearing that he was only 23, Haishio suddenly choked. At the same time, she cursed herself in her heart. Are you crazy, Luo Haishio? So am I out drinking with a kid 10 years younger than me right now? So, to avoid the awkwardness of meeting Fantai's eyes, Haishio started chugging her drink. Since she wasn't a strong drinker, it didn't take long for her to get drunk. Fantai thought she was adorable. You're drunk, my dear older lady. Haishio subconsciously denied it. No, I'm not drunk. While she was muttering, no matter how I think about it, you're just too young. Fantai pulled her into his arms. Isn't it better if I'm younger? That guy is messing around with a woman 8 years younger than him. And I'm even younger than he is. Looking at the boy so close to her, to tell the truth, Haishio's heart skipped a beat. Fantai continued to entice her. Don't you feel wronged? If you still want revenge now, you can just use me. As he spoke, Fantai placed his hand behind Haishio's head. But just as they were getting closer, the guilt in Haishio's heart suddenly flared up. Faced with such a good kid, she really couldn't go through with it. So she left the barbecue stall first. After just a few steps, she was hiccuping and spinning around dizzily. Luckily, Fantai caught her in time. The way home isn't this way. I don't want to go home. Hearing this, Fantai was stunned. Saying things like that is a bit dangerous. Do you want me to stay by your side? Haishio leaned weakly into his arms and started talking nonsense. Fantai, do you know? You have a really seductive look. It seems like you'll say anything after having a few drinks, Luo Haishio. I've always been like this. You just don't know it yet. Haha. Didn't you just say you didn't like me because I was too young? Hearing this, Haishio was defiant. Be quiet. Who are you trying to act like an adult with? Haishio turned around from his arms, but her foot slipped. You always seem so smooth and experienced. I've lived 10 years. Longer than you. If you keep teasing me by saying things like I can use you, then I'm going to have to teach you a lesson. Unexpectedly, Haishio actually forced a kiss on Fantaiha. It turned out that after learning Fantaiha was only 23, Haishio felt she must be crazy to ask a kid 10 years younger than her out for drinks. Consequently, to escape the awkward reality, she soon got herself drunk. Under Fantaiha's repeated teasing and provocations, Haishio, as the elder, decided to give him a little lesson. She turned around, pulled him close, and to make up for the height difference, Haishio stumbled and stepped on Fantaiha's feet, struggling to stand on her tiptoes, but finding it still wasn't enough. So, she ordered Fantaiha to lower his head. Originally, Fantaiha still had a relaxed smile on his face, but when the moment he had been waiting for actually arrived, his heart, despite being prepared, still pounded wildly with excitement. His mind went blank for a second, making him act like because standing on tiptoes and tilting her head back was too exhausting. Haishio soon admitted defeat again. But, verbally, she still wouldn't back down, asking him, I told you I could do it, didn't I? Stop being so cocky. I know a lot more than you do. Hearing this, Fantaiha didn't respond. Instead, he leaned down and kissed her back. Compared to Haishio's clumsiness and naivety, his kiss was much more intense. In a continuous cycle of breathing, and suffocation, the physically exhausted Haishio's legs gradually began to tremble. Just as she was about to fall, Fantaiha held her firmly in his arms. The street lights carved the snowflakes into glowing feathers. He only felt the biting cold, yet he stubbornly cradled the skin. A disappearing galaxy. Their breath collided in the freezing air, creating white mist, but between their lips and teeth, a distant fire blazed. Time explored the snowy kiss, and all the unspoken words shattered in their intertwined breaths. Finally, Haishio was the first to wave the white flag, lightly thumping Fantaiha's chest to signal her surrender. After a long time, their lips parted. Feeling each other's breath, Haishio collapsed weakly into Fantaiha's arms. Seeing his deeply affectionate gaze, Haishio shyly buried her face in his collar. Seriously, it's all your fault that I've lost all my energy. After saying that, Haishio fell into a deep, exhausted sleep in Fantaiha's arms. A short while later, Fantaiha carried Haishio to a hotel owned by his family. After placing Haishio gently on the bed, Fantaiha thoughtfully took off her shoes. Recalling the scenes from moments ago, Fantaiha, who had been provoked to the point of losing control, gradually regained his reason. Knew he had to be patient and continue to wait obediently. Seeing Haishio curled up defenselessly in his arms, Fantaiha whispered with a smile, you seem to trust me far too much. For someone so lacking in security, he knew exactly how much trust this represented. Then, Fantaiha tucked Haishio in under the covers. But just as he was about to leave, Haishio suddenly grabbed his hand as he tried to pull away. Seeing his beloved right before his eyes, Fantaiha felt a surge of heat. His heart, which had already settled down, was once again provoked into a frantic pounding by Haishio's actions. To restrain his inner impulses, Fantaiha quickly walked out of the room. But before leaving, he heard Haishio sleep-talking, which made him stop in his tracks. Looking back, he saw Haishio looking uneasy, as if she were having a nightmare. Fantaiha returned to her side and gently stroked her head, softly singing a gentle song until Haishio's brow completely relaxed, ending her years-long nightmare. The next morning, a hungover Haishio woke up with a dry nose and numb limbs. Feeling the soft texture of the bedsheets, a confused Haishio sat up, trying hard to recall what had happened last night. I drank alcohol and then forced a kiss on Fantaiha. The moment her memory returned, Haishio's mind went blank. Then, horrified, she jumped out of bed, clutching her burning cheeks. Haishio comforted herself. No, this must be a dream. Haven't I had experiences like this before? It's all his fault for always saying such strange things. That's why I'm having these wild dreams. But looking at the neatly placed shoes, the quietly sitting bag, and the neatly hung coat, Haishio was somewhat dazed. It clearly should have been a dream, but what replaced her drunken state were someone's gentle hands. Facing this inescapable fact, Haishio only felt her whole body heat up until her face turned beet red. Her undergarments. Fortunately, after she passed out, it seemed that nothing immediately buried her head in her knees, blaming herself. Fortunately what? After causing such a disaster, I'm actually thinking about this now. I shouldn't have crossed the line, but it's all his fault. He looked as if he were inviting it. His every gesture made me so restless. That face was so irritatingly handsome that I couldn't stand it and just had to take a bite out of him. No, 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 don't think the worst. It's not we slept together. Something at this level probably won't be given too much significance. Haishio could only use words to numb herself. Otherwise, she really wouldn't have the face to see Fan Taihao again. Anyway, it's probably not his first time, right? With a face like that, and being so skilled, having no experience would be the strange thing. But I'm truly a terrible elder. I must contact him to apologize. However, just as she put on her coat and prepared to leave, she suddenly found a note in her pocket. It turned out that last night, Fan Taihao felt Haishio would be scared waking up in a strange place, so he left a message. Since you were too drunk and it was hard to get home, I brought you here. I hope you can understand. P.S. Don't worry about the room charge. I won a hotel voucher. I was originally saving it for when I had a girlfriend. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fan Taihao was very happy about getting closer to Haishio. He decided not to take the initiative to contact her today. Because her debt had increased, as the creditor, he needed Haishio to contact him first before he'd be in the mood to forgive the debt. Beside him, Li Zai listened with confusion, not knowing what he was talking about or quite what he was hiding. Now, he couldn't tell if Fan Taihao simply didn't want to be found out, or if he was going crazy because he wanted to be found out. He acted like this toward that woman, and also toward the chairman. At the same time, Haishio, having returned home, decided to tidy up the house. To make it no longer our home, she planned to take out all the things that no longer belonged to her and throw them all away. Among them were clothes that could be easily discarded, but also some precious memories of her youth that were hard to let go of. But the most, Haishio. She still held back the tears in her heart. She swore never to cry again over that jerk after packing up Jiang Minch's clothes and all their old memories. Haishio felt utterly exhausted. She planned to just tidy up a few things, but in the end, it felt just like moving out. Thinking back to moving day, they shared a bowl of black bean noodles. Jiang Mingche gave that to her. Now that he is gone, the house feels so empty. Haishio realized for the first time how small her own space actually was in this tiny apartment. While throwing those things away, she also tossed out her old underwear. Whether he is there or not, her life, worn down by 13 years of struggle, will likely remain a struggle. Perhaps to fill the void in her heart, Haishio decided to buy new underwear. Looking at the teddy bear she never had the chance to give, she hesitated about calling Tai He to come over for black bean noodles. Meanwhile, Fan Tai He, who was playing with blocks, couldn't help but smirk when he saw Haishio's invitation. Haishio never imagined she would end up giving underwear as a gift to Fan Tai He. After clearing out the old rags, Haishio decided to buy a new set. Seeing everything at the market, she found it all so fascinating. Growing up poor, she never owned anything brand new. Everything was hand-me-downs or junk. So even just a new mirror was something she cherished. The brightest thing she ever owned since birth was the TV, that little sun that lit up her entire youth. Yet, it vanished just like that, as if it never belonged to her. Unknowingly, Haishio walked up to a clothing store and looked up. Since she always bought from street stalls before, she hesitated to go in. Luckily, the shopkeeper noticed her and learned she was looking for underwear. The lady was very welcoming. I have everything. What style are you looking for? Just something basic and comfortable. And the size? Haishio hesitated for a second and answered shyly D. The lady joked with envy. I don't know who he is, but your partner is definitely lucky. She then turned to look for the right style, while Haishio blushed deep red. Suddenly, the lady pulled out a lace set. How about this? If I wore this, my old man would go crazy for me. Haishio shook her head frantically. No, no way. Finally, the lady picked a simpler set, and Haishio accepted it with a blush. You look like a young bride. Are you married? Hearing the gossip, Haishio smiled calmly. No, I'm single. This time, there was no bitterness or sadness, just a genuine smile from the heart. Hearing this, the lady pulled out a thong and handed it to her with a laugh. This one's a gift. Come back and see us. Haishio flinched, instinctively wanting to refuse, but she couldn't say no to the kindness. She walked out blushing, but looking at the new items and feeling the joy of shopping, her awkwardness soon faded. Since she was giving the teddy bear to Fan Tai He, Haishio also bought wrapping paper and a box. The weather has been cold lately, so she bought herself some fuzzy socks. Breaking free from the past, even with debts. She was slowly learning how to embrace herself. Right then, she suddenly remembered Tai He rides a motorcycle often, but his gloves didn't look very warm. So she went to a shop nearby and bought a pair of warm-looking gloves. Christmas is in a few days. It would be a perfect gift for him. Soon, Fan Tai He replied to her message. Even though the market was crowded, Haishio looked around and spotted his striking figure. Immediately, because he was so handsome and well-dressed, a group of ladies surrounded him. My daughter would really like someone like you. Do you have a girlfriend, young man? Fan Tai He smiled politely. Sorry, ma'am, I'm already seeing someone. As he spoke, Haishio walked up right next to him with a look of surprise. She asked, when did you get here? I just got here. That was fast. I thought it would take longer. Tai He took the bags from her hands Honestly, he was dying to know what she would say about yesterday. What kind of face would she make? So he asked with a smirk. I'm curious. Why did you ask me to come? Memories of last night's embarrassing scene flashed in her mind. She looked away, stuttering. An excuse. Well, I wanted black bean noodles and sweet and sour pork, but ordering both for one person felt a bit. He teased. Is that the only reason? Of course it is. Come on, it's on me. But as they sat at the table, the atmosphere felt a bit awkward. To avoid his gaze, Haishio took small sips of water. She felt like a shameless person who did something bad and was only now buying him dinner to apologize. The more she thought, the worse she felt. Soon, the food arrived. Try this. The noodles here are great. Oh, you come here often? I used to come with Jiang Mingxie. She caught herself and quickly explained. I've just been here a few times. For some reason, she was afraid to mention him. But that makes sense. Even if she was drunk, mentioning an ex to someone you've kissed feels weird. While eating, she glanced at Taehi. He looked perfectly calm. As if nothing happened. Haishio felt embarrassed that she was the only one. Feeling anxious, she thought to herself, this must be normal for him. He probably wants to just ignore my drunken mistake. Once she convinced herself of that, she finally ate in peace. After dinner, Taehi walked her home. The whole way, she worked up the courage to apologize. Thanks for the noodles and for coming to see me when you were busy. Also, I need to say this. About yesterday, I was out of line. I'm sorry. Since I was drunk, it is not like that. So what is the problem then? I told you that you can use me. If your heart is not ready yet, you can use my body. As he spoke, Taehi tried to hold her slightly trembling hand. Unexpectedly, Haishio blushed and shoved the gift running away. This is a gift. Christmas is coming soon. Open it when you get home. Taehi smirked and asked, can I come in? No, I did not mean here. Go back to your own place. She dashed inside and slammed the door. Haishio gasped for air. Seriously, he looks so mild and honest on the outside, but he is actually such a player. He had the nerve to ask to come in. He is a total womanizer. Haishio covered her mouth, feeling a bit shaken, and soon her body broke into a sweat. Haishio dizzily went to take a shower. However, when she came out of the bathroom to try on the new underwear she bought today, she searched for a long time. Haishio realized with horror that she had just given the underwear to Fan. Taehi is the gift. Haishio imagined Fan Taehi going home and opening the gift box with anticipation, only to awkwardly find her new underwear inside. The thought made her both mortified and embarrassed. She immediately called Fan Taehi. Haishio was on pins and needles, constantly telling herself, it is okay, it is fine. He definitely hasn't opened it yet, or he would have contacted me already. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fan Taehi opened the gift and took out the teddy bear. But when he opened the shopping bag, a wave of heat instantly rushed through him. The next second, he received a call from Haishio. On the other end, Haishio asked cautiously, are you home? Yeah. Have you opened the gift yet? Not yet. Haishio finally felt relieved. That is great. I mean, I am so sorry I messed up. Whatever you do not open the things in the red paper bag. Fan Taehi covered his burning eyes, his voice sounding a bit raspy. Why? Well, in there is something really scary. If you see it, you might have nightmares. Anyway, just do not open it. I got it. I will bring it back to you tomorrow morning. Hanging up, Haishio sighed in relief. That was a close call. What a blessing. To be honest, she couldn't even imagine what he would think of her if he saw it. However, while sleeping that night, Haishio dreamed of being intimate with Fan Taehi, and she was wearing the new underwear. Amidst a strange sensation, Haishio suddenly woke up. Her face flushed red as she pressed her legs together. Haishio buried herself in her pillow, feeling incredibly ashamed. Meanwhile, Fan Taehi was also having a hard time. His whole body felt hot, and he couldn't sleep all night. The next morning, Haishio, who hadn't slept a wink, crawled out of bed. Just as she was about to get ready for work, she heard a knock at the door. She then remembered Fan Taehi. He said he would bring back the mistaken gift this morning. Seeing him arrive when it was barely dawn, Haishio felt a bit embarrassed as they swapped bags. This is for you. It was the original gift I meant to give you. Sorry to make you come all this way. However, seeing him chuckle, Haishio thought it was strange. He looks really exhausted today. Are you feeling okay? No, I am fine. Are you just tired? You caught me. Fan Taehi explained. Actually, I just didn't sleep well. Oh, me too. I think it is because it is too cold in the winter. After a moment of silence, Haishio was about to go to work, but Fan Taehi stopped her. I also brought a gift for you. Open it when you get home. Back inside, looking at the sweater Fan Taehi gave her, Haishio was very happy. It fit perfectly. He probably doesn't know my size. This sweater looks high quality and feels pretty expensive. It must have cost over 50,000 won. It is super warm. I should thank him when I see him later. Seeing Haishio come to work in new clothes, Wajin was a bit envious. Sis, did you buy new clothes? They are beautiful and fit you perfectly. Receiving the compliment, Haishio was very happy. Yeah. It was a gift. I don't know who it is from, but they have great taste. It is really pretty, to be honest. You usually wear those same two outfits. You were looking a bit shabby. Hearing this, the smile on Haishio's face froze. She awkwardly nodded while wondering Did he give me clothes because he felt sorry for me? Did your husband buy them for you? Hearing Hua Jin's question, Haishio was stunned. Wasn't it a gift? It is obvious your husband gave it to you, right? Haishio was silent for a few seconds before telling Hua Jin earnestly, I am already divorced. Hearing such a sudden answer, Hua Jin looked shocked. How did you get divorced? You didn't mention it before. But Haishio didn't want to explain further. She headed toward the back locker room, leaving Hua Jin confused. You told me you had a husband not long ago. How did you get divorced so fast? Soon after, Fan Tai he walked into the shop, right on time with a bright smile. Busy today? Haishio nodded, feeling a bit down. I have been spending too much lately, so I need to work harder. This bouquet of roses is wrapped. Take it, and please leave. Well then, I will buy another one. Please give me another bouquet of roses. You. Really? Seeing the subtle vibe between them, Hua Jin was both shocked and envious. Suddenly, a bad suspicion arose. The next second, seeing Fan Tai He's actions, Hua Jin was stunned. Then, coming to his senses, he tugged at Fan Tai He's sleeve. Excuse me, there is something I want to talk to you about in private. Seeing their interaction, Haishio felt a flash of jealousy, but immediately pretended not to care and turned away. I will go back to work then. You two can finish talking. Outside the flower shop, Hua Jin asked with a serious face. Fan Tai He, what is your relationship with Haishio? Fan Tai He didn't answer directly but asked with a chuckle. What is it? If you don't want to answer, forget it. Anyone with eyes can see. I know you have feelings for her, but please. Stop right there. There is something you might not know yet. It seems Hua Jin was trying to warn him off. Fan Tai He's gaze gradually turned cold. Meanwhile, in the flower shop, looking through the glass at Fan Tai He and Hua Jin standing at the door, she couldn't hear what they were saying. Haishio felt very conflicted. Beside the jealousy, she felt uneasy. On the other side, Fan Tai He asked Hua Jin with a half smile. Is it because of the age gap? Hua Jin shook his head. It is not. Just that. Though that is an issue. Listen to me and... Hua Jin answered naturally. Why else? Of course, because I am worried about you. I can't let you be fooled without knowing anything. Hearing this, Fan Tai He looked back at Haishio in confusion. Generally speaking, shouldn't you be more worried about the person you actually know? Hua Jin felt a bit guilty. An older woman hiding the fact she was married. Just to date younger guys. Even if she were a stranger, I couldn't just stand by. But before he could finish, Fan Tai He interrupted him and told him impatiently. What if I already knew? I knew she had a husband, and I knew it ended. A long time ago, not only do I know everything, but I've been yearning for her. Day after day, bit by bit, I crossed the line, harboring wicked desires and counting my fingers while waiting for that relationship to collapse. Hua Jin, who intended to suck up by snitching, broke into a cold sweat. With a trembling voice he asked why. Fan Tai He flashed a sinister smile. Out of impure intentions, of course. So now, all you need to do is worry about Haishio. Go ahead and tell her she is in danger, understand? Late at night, seeing Fan Tai He acting like a loyal dog, taking her to the shop every day, and waiting until she gets off work to take her home, Li Zai truly couldn't understand it. But Fan Tai He just kept playing with the gloves Haishio gave him. Although, he could only fit 4 fingers inside, he still couldn't put them down. Li Zai asked the question that had been on his mind. Are you really serious about her? What does it look like to you? To be honest, you don't look that serious. You could hide it better, but you always deliberately leave traces. So I suspect you plan to just end things once your identity is discovered. A guy your age, pursuing a divorced older woman. While unconventional, it isn't entirely incomprehensible. Even though I have only met her a few times, that woman seems very upright and devoted. Even if you tried to buy her love with money, she is the type who would never easily give in. Of course, anything can happen. After all, anyone can easily become shallow when faced with money. Hearing Li Zai's opinion of him, Fan Tai He laughed and teased. I will tell you the answer next time. Back at home, Fan Tai He immediately hugged the teddy bear Haishio gave him, gently stroking the heart on it. He felt a surge of excitement. Recalling the uneasy expression Haishio made today because she was worried he would leave, Fan Tai He buried half his face in the plush and gave a sweet smile. However, on the other side, Haishio couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Being sensitive, seeing Fan Tai He and Hua Jin talking privately suddenly made her feel inferior. In her eyes, the two of them were a perfect match. And that would be normal. Even if it was just a shallow feeling at this age, the way that boy cared for me was real. Because she was deep in loneliness, Haishio always pretended to be unaware, as if only by feigning ignorance could she make this relationship last a bit longer and keep him by her side. But the moment of reckoning suddenly arrived. Haishio knew it was time to say they weren't right for each other. So, after work the next day, Haishio grabbed Fan Tai He and in a rare pulled him into her home. Fan Tai He teased with a chuckle. You are making my heart race. Haishio kept a straight face and was very serious. Enough. Be serious. What I am about to say might hurt you. Fan Tai He looked curious. How would it hurt me? You know Hua Jin, right? The works part-time with me at the flower shop. Thinking back on everything that happened yesterday, seemed to understand something. Maybe you don't like me with that person, but before he could finish his sentence, Haishio suddenly asked if she should introduce her to him. Hearing this, Fan Tai He's movement stopped, and the smile on his face instantly vanished. That really did hurt. But Haishio still went on to say that if she wasn't the one, then he should go and meet other girls his age. Like that girl who contacted you before. Anyway, there must be plenty of people who like you. Fan Tai He got a bit angry and pressed his hand against Haishio's mouth, roughly sticking his finger inside to question. The blushing Haishio Who would want to date a guy who wants to do this to a divorced woman? Haishio resentfully broke free from his grip. Do you think liking a divorced woman much older than you is normal? What would your parents think if they knew you were doing this? If I were someone close to you, I would do everything in my power to break you up. Fan Tai-hee felt a bit of pain. He grabbed her chin and pulled her close, staring into her teary eyes, asking seriously, do you think I look normal? Haishio wanted to argue, but before she could speak, her words were blocked by his lips. His movements were gentle but carried an undeniable firmness. She tried to struggle but was pinned by his deep gaze. Gradually calming down, his hand gently cradled her head, pulling her closer as if to melt all his love into this silent touch. His breath brushed past her ear with a slight warmth. She could feel the turmoil in his heart. It was a silent plea. His lips gently brushed against hers, as if expressing an unspeakable secret. She closed her eyes and let her tears quietly fall. In this tender touch, Haishio found a bit of peace. Slowly, she actively wrapped her arms around his head and quietly responded to his confession. As the night deepened, they just stood there quietly, looking at the love in each other's eyes. Haishio broke the silence. You once asked me if I wasn't happy about winning. Yes, I had those thoughts because I am just an ordinary person, so I also feel aggrieved and sad about what happened to me. Having such a brilliant and young guy pursue me, and doing this with you and being treated so well. I once thought about showing all of this to that person and mocking him. But even though I am worn down and broken, I still don't want to date you with a sense of revenge. For a kid as good as you, I don't want you to be consumed just to help me escape my loneliness. When I was little, no one ever stood by me. Therefore, I want to be the one standing by you. But this isn't fair to you. So please, try to stop liking me. Watching Haishio painfully close her eyes and speak words that sounded like a farewell, Fan Tai-hee grabbed her hand tightly and told her in a soft voice, the heart's desire to like someone is something you can't give up even if you try. However, if that's the case, then please keep pretending you don't know. Haven't you been doing a great job of that? I won't force you to like me. But if you hate me being close to you, don't use the excuse that it's for my own good. You only need to say one thing. Even though she had made up her mind, she simply couldn't bring herself to say it. Back home, Haishio lay in bed troubled for a long time. Since she didn't have the confidence to face Fan Tai-hee, she sent a message telling him not to pick her up tomorrow. Haishio felt unreasonable. She had been accepting his companionship, only to suddenly decide to push him away. Yet, in the end, she could never utter the words that she hated him. It was clearly a perfect opportunity to push him away, but she stayed silent. The moment she opened her lips, she felt as if she had already been seen through. Meanwhile, Fan Tai-hee was feeling very gloomy, repeatedly pressing the heart on the plush toy. He then said to Li Zai-yi, regarding the question you asked me last time, I'll answer you now. I once saw a movie where one scene left a deep impression on me. A man took a drunk woman to a hotel. The whole room was so quiet that only the sound of breathing remained. The man did nothing until dawn, as if even the sound of a blink would wake her from her weary slumber. He simply stayed by the side of the woman he loved, staying awake all night. Back then, I wondered why someone would film such an obvious thing and act it out with such deep affection. I didn't understand back then what was so special about that man's feelings. But now I understand. A night of restraint is indeed not an easy thing. Li Zai listened, puzzled. He had asked if he really liked that woman. But does this madman really call this an answer? He then smiled skeptically. It's not like it's your first time going to a hotel with a girlfriend. Surely that kind of thing can't be that difficult. Mocked by his subordinate, Fan Tai-hee didn't respond, but just stared at him with a serious face. Li Zai was suddenly startled. Holy cow, he's not actually a virgin, is he? The next day at work, colleagues noticed Haishio was distracted, under the serious scrutiny of the boss and co-workers. Haishio awkwardly claimed she had a friend who was having relationship issues. Specifically, is there any way to make someone who likes her stop liking her? Haishio, who was never good at lying, was immediately exposed. What friend? It's clearly you. But since you've asked, listen up, I have a way to cut off ties not just with men, but also with family, friends, and relatives, every kind of relationship. That is, go and borrow money from him right now. Back home after work, Haishio hesitantly opened her phone, recalling her past with Jiang Mingche, youthful. Love came passionately and quickly, so his liking might also fade with time. However, Haishio, who originally planned to borrow 10 million, became worried. What if this child was immature enough to ruin his own life just to get that money? The thought suddenly frightened her, so she decided to ask for an unrealistic amount. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fan Tai-hee saw his phone ring and opened Haishio's message. Lend me 100 million won. Fan Tai-hee smiled. My Annie is just too cute. It's here. The long-awaited chapters 38 and 39 are finally here. Haishio and Fan Tai-hee's feelings are heating up, rapidly completing their final soul contract. It turns out that ever since Haishio deliberately asked to borrow 100 million won to break off the relationship, she had lost all contact with him. The conversation that Fan Tai-hee started ended with her messes. At the same time, she felt selfish. She was the one who hurt him with those words, but deep down, she still believed he would keep pestering her. It took Haishio half a month to accept the fact that he wasn't around. She knew that the days of him pushing open the door to buy flowers might never return. Because of this, Haishio was distracted all day and faced much criticism from customers. Only when she truly lost it did she realize how much she cherished it. Every day, walking home alone, she couldn't help but wonder how Fan Tai-hee was doing. Was he still having nightmares? Was he still getting hurt? Were the gloves she gave him warm enough? Did he still go to that place alone? She recalled him saying that whenever he had too much on his mind, he would go to the mountaintop alone. But at the time, her own heart was so burdened that she failed to notice that he also had many emotions that needed an outlet. Only now has Haishio finally realized that she knew nothing about Fan Tai-hee. At the same time, she felt fortunate because there was nothing to remind her of him. Even the word forget seemed an exaggeration since their relationship and memories were so shallow. But before she knew it, Haishio had walked to the same clothing store where she had bought the teddy bear for Fan Tai-hee. Slowly, Haishio began to feel a sense of regret because there was one thing she hadn't told him. If you place that teddy bear by your pillow when you sleep, it will protect you. That way you won't have nightmares anymore. Speaking to herself, Haishio's eyes gradually turned red. She regretted that she didn't tell him then. For someone who had always been deeply traumatized, she had remained a selfish and insensitive adult from start to finish. When they were together, she always felt awkward, hard to express, but after you left, the words left unsaid remained fresh and endless. My already broken heart was ripped open again, leaving Haishio in constant pain. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fantai had stopped the guest who was bothering Haishio. Li Zai couldn't bear to watch, saying, if you're drunk, just go home and sleep. Why mess with innocent people? He's been sensitive lately, looking like he'd kill anyone he runs into. But right then, Fantai has suddenly asked him, are you good at fighting? Li Zai was confused. Why? I guess I'm okay at it, since I've been fighting every day lately. Fantai had touched his bruised face. Then hit me, as hard as you can in the most visible spot. Li Zai was shocked. Don't joke around. What bodyguard hits his boss? Fantai shook his head helplessly. Then clock out. I have to. Go give him the money. Soon after, receiving a message from Fantai, I'm right outside your door. Haishio froze, then immediately ran to the door. Joy, worry, deep thought. At this moment, his heart was a mess. Fantai wore a mask, hands in his pockets, just staring at him quietly. Haishio hardened his heart and questioned him. What are you doing here? I'm sorry, but if you didn't bring what I asked for, then I have no reason to see you. I hope you'll leave. Suddenly, he noticed the bruises on Fantai's face that even the mask couldn't hide. Haishio asked worriedly, what happened to your face? Don't tell me you went fighting again. You said you were an adult now, so why act like a child? Even if someone picks a fight, you should walk away. Doesn't this hurt? The more Haishio spoke, the more upset he got, his eyes tearing up. For some reason, Fan Taiha always managed to touch his softest spot. But right now, Haishio didn't realize that maybe only facing him made him so weak. He turned around and warned Fan Taiha. This is the last time. Get lost after this. Back home, while silently treating Fan Taiha's wounds, Haishio gave a cold order to leave. If you don't want scars, be careful. And even if you get hurt worse than this next time, I won't see you again. If you understand, then get out. But before he could get up to leave, Fan Taiha suddenly grabbed his hand. I brought it. I brought what you wanted. So please, let me stay a bit longer. Haishio was confused. What do you mean? He suddenly realized a possibility and frantically asked, what did you bring? That's impossible. You couldn't raise that much money in just a few weeks. It's a lie. But when the Korean won fell out of the paper bag, Haishio's pupils shrank. Fear and worry flooded his heart. Haishio slammed him to the ground and shouted, Fan Taiha, where did this money come from? Answer me. Seeing Haishio's angry face, Fan Taiha grabbed his uncontrollably shaking hand and slowly moved it toward his own abdomen. Didn't you say you'd see me? So I went and sold an organ. Looking at the scar on his chest, Haishio felt like he was falling into an abyss. Cold memories chilled his body. Touching that vivid scar, tears began to fall uncontrollably. Haishio cried in despair and regret. Fan Taiha panicked and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I was joking. That's a scar from a long time ago. I didn't think you'd actually believe it. But the more he spoke, the louder Haishio cried. Seeing things spiral out of control, Fan Taiha was completely lost. I'm sorry. Should I leave? I'll do whatever you say. Please don't cry. What do you want me to do? But at this, Haishio choked back tears and asked, what about you? What do you want? What am I supposed to do? I pushed you away for your own good. Why do you always make me go soft? Why do you always make me the bad guy? What on earth am I supposed to do with you? Haishio sobbed on Fan Taiha's shoulder, his voice breaking. Fan Taiha held him, comforting him again and again until the crying stopped. Only then did he ask, are you done crying? Haishio frowned, feeling a bit embarrassed. Don't ask that. Fan Taiha smiled. Then, how long do you plan on staying in this position? I mean, I like it. But my little brother here might be getting uncomfortable. Haishio moved to give him space, blushing and annoyed. Even at a time like this, you're being so bold? Have you no shame? Fan Taiha looked hurt. Do I really look like that? Looking at the boy's handsome face, the room went quiet, except for the ticking clock. Recalling his previous flirtatious words, Haishio's heart suddenly started racing. Then he leaned in for a kiss. Looking closely, he said, yeah? Tell me. Haishio kissed him, biting Fan Taiha's lip. This wasn't like that drunken mess. Now his goal was clear. He pressed tightly against little Fan Taiha to keep from losing control. Fan Taiha tried to push Haishio away, but was pinned to the floor instead. Haishio's advance became aggressive, pressing his thigh hard against him. Fantaiha tried his best to stay restrained. If you regret this, it's not too late to stop. Seeing his face strain. From the effort of holding back, Haishio took a few deep breaths and grabbed Fantaiha's hand, pressing it against his own heart. His tone was stubborn. You're the one who shouldn't regret it. Slowly, only the sound of their breathing remained. Fantaiha gradually took the lead, his kisses sliding across Haishio's face, missing no spot. He held Haishio and unbuttoned his shirt. As the clothes fell away, his eyes grew intense. Leaning down to look at him, Fantaiha's movements were gentle, yet they still startled Haishio, who covered his mouth to stay quiet. After some time, Haishio lay exhausted on the ground. He lifted him up, stripping away the last layers. Haishio felt strange when he was with Jiang Mingxie. Because they were so familiar with each other, it always ended quickly. But Fantaiha's slow, deliberate touch was just too much. Haishio stopped him and told him to just start. But then, seeing the size of what he was working with, Haishio was stunned. Fantaiha laughed. Why do you suddenly regret it? Don't like it? Haishio didn't answer, just pulled him closer. Stop asking. My eyes grew hot, and my mind began to fade. I thought this time would be like any other, nothing special. But as his heavy, deliberate rhythm took over, a strange sensation washed over me. Even though I thought I was fully prepared, this wasn't something you could just handle with preparation alone. It felt like a storm, surging through me over and over. After a while, Fantaiha suddenly covered my eyes. With a shudder, his movement stopped. But seeing him stir again immediately, Haishio gasped in shock. You wouldn't. Even though he looked exhausted, Fantaiha smiled and promised this would really be the last time. Haishio started to struggle. Just how many times are you going for? Fantaiha looked confused. Don't you like it? Haishio went silent. He liked it. Of course. He did. After a long time, Haishio fell into an exhausted sleep. Fantaiha wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, silently watching over the one he loved. Finally, the sweet daily life of Haishio and his rose began. After a night of passion, Haishio had fallen into a deep sleep. The next morning, in his dreams, Haishio felt a dreamlike warmth. Only, this warmth wasn't always soft and comfortable. Instead, it felt a bit hard. Haishio felt a bit cramped, nuzzling against Fantaiha's arm before slowly opening his eyes. Waking up, he was a bit groggy, thinking it was just the weather getting warmer that made him sleep so soundly. Haishio prepared to take a shower and head to work, but as he moved, he realized a pair of large hands were holding him tight. Looking at that young face on the pillow and his bitten, swollen lip, Haishio finally remembered just how wild last night had been. In a flash, Haishio wiggled back under the covers, hiding like a snail to avoid the awkwardness of him waking up. Haishio closed his eyes and tried to calm himself. Okay, Luo Haishio. Didn't you know this would happen when you did it? Half of it was impulsive, but the other half, thinking back to last night's madness, Haishio mustered the courage to open his eyes. For an adult guy, a one-night stand shouldn't be that big of a deal. Don't make a scene, just act normal, he told himself. However, he and Fantaiha weren't strangers, and they hadn't even been drinking. Haishio couldn't convince himself. For some reason, he was a bit bothered. Though he cried so hard he barely remembered what happened. Fantaiha's initially awkward and clumsy movements had quickly become quite skilled. Thinking about that made him feel weird, like Fantaiha had a lot of experience, so last night probably wasn't a big deal to him. But what Haishio didn't know was that last night was actually Fantaiha's first time. He was just naturally gifted at it. After a while, Fantaiha showed no signs of waking up. Haishio tried to wiggle out from under Fantaiha's arm, but after struggling for a long time, Haishio was shocked by how strong his grip was. Could he be faking sleep just to watch me struggle? At that thought, Haishio bristled. Fantaiha opened his eyes with a smile, his arms wrapping even tighter around Haishio. Where are you going? Feeling the warm breath against his ear, Haishio blushed instantly, the images of last night flashing back. Haishio turned red and blocked his breath. Don't talk right in my ear. Fantaiha teased him. Why? Ugh, your voice is too low. It's vibrating. I told you not to do that. So listen. Now that you're awake, let go. I have to go to work soon. As Haishio tried to pry Fantaiha's arm away, Fantaiha acted hurt and said, can't you stay? I'm still really sore. Haishio froze for a few seconds before realizing what he meant, then started swatting at Fantaiha, who was burying his face and laughing. Sore? How can someone who's sore do what you did yesterday? But in the end, Haishio gave in and skipped work. Looking at Fantaiha, who was smiling like a kid, Haishio felt helpless. Look at what you've done. Luo Haishio, spending money impulsively and now skipping work on a whim. Since meeting him, I feel like I've become strange myself. Just weird in an indescribable way. Even my tastes are weird. Everything is weird. Seeing the scars on Fantaiha's body, Haishio asked gently, why do you have so many scars? Even on your arms. Fantaiha was quiet for a moment before telling him, I was sickly. As a kid, I was in the hospital for so long and kept begging to leave. But it was so long ago. I don't remember much. Hard to believe on this healthy now, right? But Haishio didn't care about that. He just asked softly, it must have really hurt. How many tears did you cry, being left with such big scars? Haishio couldn't imagine what a crying Fantaiha would look like. He warned him, if you know it hurts, don't fight anymore. If you ever show up with injuries again, I won't see you. Fantaiha laughed playfully. First you told me to date other women, and now you're threatening not to see me. Are you worried about me? I don't know. Haha, I got it. Why are you laughing? I can't get beaten up anymore because someone will be sad. Haha, I'm not sad at all. And so, the two of them stayed tangled in bed, bickering until Haishio's stomach growled. The sound made him so embarrassed he wanted to disappear. Fantaya asked, "Are you hungry?" No. Knowing he was just being stubborn, Fantaya got out of bed. "Wait a bit, okay? I'll make breakfast." Hearing this, Haishio scrambled up. "What? Breakfast are you making? I'm a great cook." "That's not the point. This is my house, and you're a guest." But after standing up, Haishio realized he was completely naked and frantically pulled up the covers. Fantaya leaned against the doorframe and chuckled. "I didn't see anything." Haishio snapped. "You obviously did." Soon, Haishio put on fresh clothes, including the sweater the other had given him. Suddenly, he remembered when Jiang Mingche used to cook, but when he'd peeked, the kitchen was practically on fire. Worried, Haishio rushed to the kitchen before even finishing his outfit. To nag him, "Do you know how to turn on the stove? Do you even know what a pot is? Look, this is salt." Fantaya glanced at him, then just picked him up, slung him over his shoulder, and marched back to the bedroom. He tossed Haishio back onto the bed. "Just get some rest. You look exhausted." Haishio's face turned bright red, and he silently grumbled to himself. "Hilarious. I'm only like this because of you." A bit later, hearing noise from the kitchen, Haishio peeked through the door. Looking at Fantaya's sturdy build, the small kitchen seemed completely filled up. Haishio couldn't help but wonder what he'd eaten to grow so big. At the thought of where that size went, his face flushed again. Hearing the movement behind him, Fantaya turned back with a smirk and a wink. Seeing this, Haishio quickly covered his mouth and hid behind the wall. Honestly, had he lost his mind? Shortly after, Fantaya returned home, holding a medical report he'd found at Haishio's place and staring at it for a long time. His mind. After breakfast, Haishio told Fantaya, "I'm going to take a shower. Just stay here and wait for me. Whatever you do, don't come into the bedroom." Seeing Fantaya nod obediently, Haishio finally felt safe going to wash up. Hearing the splashing water from the bathroom, Fantaya thought back to last night and couldn't help but smirk, still as trusting as ever. Then, Fantaya walked to Haishio's bedroom door and pushed it open. The first thing he heard was the old wooden door creaking, and he saw the bedroom was empty except for the bed. He pulled out a storage bin and looked at the red underwear Haishio had given him by mistake. Fantaya felt incredibly happy because anything belonging to that other person was gone. The traces of someone else who once filled Haishio's life were now cleared away. Watching the past being discarded piece by Haishio's own hands, Fantaya felt a wave of dizzying, tingling pleasure. Looking at the memories about to be thrown out, Fantaya curled his lips into a smile. He casually picked up a photo of the two of them, gave it an annoyed look, and tossed it aside. Then he picked up that old flip phone, but froze the next second. Staring at a resume from years ago, his heart raced with shock and couldn't calm down for a long time. Later, Fantaya secretly took it home. The moment Li Zai walked in, he quickly put the report down. Seeing the look of total satisfaction on his face, Li Zai was dying to know just how he'd charmed that innocent lady to make him in such a great mood. Soon, he and Fantaya started playing some mindless games. But then again, it was a little weird. Something about him seemed to have changed. Though he always acted like he lived in his own world, there was a subtle difference. Li Zai thought about it for a long time before it hit him. No way did he and that woman actually do it. Realizing he was speculating about his boss's private life, Li Zai cursed himself for being crazy. Why did the latecomer get the upper hand? Because Rose was both handsome and intense. While Haishio was working the night shift, he couldn't help but think of the time he spent with Fantaya this morning. Since he made breakfast, Haishio, as the host, felt he should do the dishes. But Fantaya, with a bright smile, took over and said he was great at chores. Hearing this, Haishio was a bit embarrassed. The meal was a bit sweet, a bit salty, and even a bit burnt. He didn't look like someone who did chores often. But while Taiha was washing the dishes, Haishio noticed the huge amount of cash he'd brought yesterday and curiously asked where the money came from. Fantaya leaned in and smiled. "Do you want to use it?" Hearing this, Haishio looked puzzled. "Why would I take it? That's your money." "Actually, that money is all fake. It's just movie props." Haishio gave him an annoyed look. "I knew it. Why would you do something like that and scare me?" Fantaya immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, but if I didn't even have that, then I was afraid you'd never see me again." Haishio wasn't used to such cheesy talk. Even though 12 hours had passed, every time he thought about it, he felt flustered. Before he knew it, even when Fantaya wasn't around, his voice would always echo in Haishio's ears. That lazy, deep laugh made Haishio's heart itch constantly. Near the end of his shift, Haishio rubbed his back. Fantaya had put him through it for hours last night. Even though a day had passed, he was still very sore. However, a coworker noticed the change in him. "Sis, did something good happen? You look especially radiant today. Or have you been secretly eating something good?" Hearing this, Haishio's face turned bright red. He quickly waved it off. "No, I didn't eat anything." The coworker looked suspicious. "I just asked a random question. Is there a reason to be scared?" "You look great. Anyway, for a while, your face looked so worn out I even wondered if something had happened. But work has been much easier lately. You must have felt it too, right? Lately, the customers have become much friendlier. I don't know if they're on something, or if someone beat them into submission. Seeing that makes me feel like even if life has its trashy days, the good days will definitely follow soon. So don't be depressed. Hang in there, sis." Hearing her coworker's encouragement, Haishio couldn't help but give a heartfelt smile. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yali was acting cute with Jiang Mingche. Make me some ramen. Jiang Mingche just kept looking at his phone. I can't cook. Make it yourself. Yali looked dissatisfied. But after doing it with you, I can't even move. They say some men will bathe and cook for their girlfriends afterward, but you only ever say, go to sleep. If you don't want to sleep, then let's go again. Yali muttered while kicking Jiang Mingche to vent her frustration. Seeing that he still didn't react at all, she got fed up and sat on his head. Jiang Mingche, you pervert, stop staring at your phone and go make me ramen. A flash of impatience crossed his eyes, but in the end, he gave in and walked to the kitchen. Yali happily clung to his arm. I knew you'd make it. For me. Put an egg in it too. I got it. Just wait over there. Looking at the opened instant noodles, while waiting for the water to boil, Jiang Mingche thought back to that night. Once again, on the way home together, Haishio suddenly asked, can I come to your house for dinner tonight? Hearing this, he was both shy and confused and asked, why? Until Haishio told him, because my dad came home. Noticing the bruises on his face under his hair, Jiang Mingche silently agreed and led Haishio home. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw underwear on the floor. Right in front of Haishio, he quickly piled up his socks, underwear, and used tissues. Okay, come on in. We only have ramen. Is that okay? Haishio nodded and took off his heavy coat. Jiang Mingche was so embarrassed. Damn it, last night. I was doing that while thinking of my girlfriend, and today she actually came to my house. Jiang Mingche swallowed hard, because he was afraid that crazy old man might do something again. He'd let her come over first. Calm down, Jiang Mingche. She's just here for a meal. Just add water, put in the noodles, and boil them. But he just stood there frozen. Seeing him looking like an idiot, Haishio leaned over and suggested, how about I cook? Jiang Mingche jumped, snapped out of it, and quickly stood up. No. It's fine. Just sit down. I'll do it. A moment later, a bowl of steaming ramen was placed in front of Haishio. Haishio politely picked up his chopsticks while looking at Jiang Mingche in confusion. I'll enjoy this, but she accidentally touched him where she shouldn't have. They both froze, and Haishio's face began to burn. The next second, Jiang Mingche suddenly pushed her down, and just like that, swept up in the heavy atmosphere. The two of them had their first time together. Coming back to reality, Jiang Mingche felt sentimental. He, too, once had those youthful days. At the same time, he wondered how Haishio was doing lately. Does she ever feel lonely because my side of the bed is empty? Is she sad? Does she regret pushing me away? Does she replay the pain I caused her and cry in secret? Luo Haishio, the one who cried because of Jiang Mingche. Luo Haishio, the one who mourned for Jiang Mingche. In my memory, you only ever cried for me. That's why I hope you'll cry for me again. I hope the pain drives you to come find me. Even now, for some reason, having not seen Haishio for a long time, Jiang Mingche felt a strange melancholy. Meanwhile, Haishio overheard a customer complaining, I had a one-night stand with this girl, and now she won't stop calling me. It's so annoying. Does she really think sleeping together once makes her my girlfriend? Haishio thought of himself and Fantaya. At 34, he was no longer naive enough to fully believe words like I like you. Beyond just impulse, there was a deeper, almost selfish hope that the boy would leave once he got what he wanted. Still, even if he wasn't in a rush to push him away, they had already done everything there was to do. Haishio figured Fantaya wouldn't be as desperate for him as he was before, but Haishio decided to stop overthinking. Though the initial feelings were white-hot, they would eventually burn down to something lukewarm. Colder than indifference is the stale boredom of familiarity. That is how all love ends. Someone you once longed for becomes nothing more than an unremarkable person once you finally hold them. People often mistake the one who is loved as the winner, but in his love with Jiang Mingche, Haishio was the loser. He was left facing the dry void where a flood of love once was, unsure of what could fill it. So when faced with his neglect, cold mockery, and shifting attitude, Haishio had buried it all deep inside. He knew that if he didn't, things would truly reach the end. Right at that moment, a figure outside broke his train of thought. Fantaya sat on his motorcycle, smiling as he waved his phone. Understanding the signal, Haishio checked his messages and saw one from Fantaya. Feeling better? I'm fine, he replied. Fantaya looked playful and slowly mouthed through the glass. You don't look like it. Haishio looked down and rubbed his sore back. So you do know, he thought. He wasn't as innocent as he looked. He was actually quite mischievous. Just then, Fantaya texted again. Want to go on a date after work? Seeing him make the exact same expectant face as the emoji he sent, Haishio hesitated for a second. Even though he knew this was a fleeting, youthful romance, Haishio decided on one thing. He wouldn't let the fear of a heart eventually changing stop him from being moved now.